Charles, good to see you. It feels like it's been a while.
Great to see. It's only been a week.
Only a week.
But a lot gets accomplished in a week.
Yes, you are closing in here on the Dirty Dozen.
Again, glad we gave the art department some time off so they could, cover themselves in slime and glory.
Has there never been a more wretched hive of scum and villainy?
Well, it's really worth taking a few seconds and going over this artwork.
Sure.
And maybe before we do this, I wonder, you're going to talk about some issues that we've had with Crowdsource 1.0 and the rejuvenated Crowdsource 2.0. I'm wondering, does it make sense to tweet out to your followers and my followers as we talk that we're up and live now? Because it might, and for other people to consider who are watching, doing that so that we can build a little bit of an audience, because not everybody is expecting this or necessarily going to know where to find us as readily.
That's exactly right. And I would say that that was the intention of someone, because, there are copyright infringements and then there are malicious anonymous attacks. And of course, when people steal our material simply to disparage it or reproduce it and make no actual commentary on it or do anything useful with it, that's not fair use, and that's not covered under copyright law. Stealing someone's intellectual property to then accuse them of crimes without evidence is not covered under fair use, and it's not covered under the freedom of speech. It's just straight intellectual property theft.
It's crime.
Now, I've been looking into some of these fair use statutes because, of course, we are using some famous movie posters and images of political figures and stuff. But, of course, that is covered under fair use and copyright law because we do have the right to freedom of speech. And these posters are obviously substantially modified to the extent that no one reasonable could confuse this with the actual film, The Dirty Dozen. Right. And this is a comedic take. We are, of course, displaying some of your favorite political figures, Charles. I mean, before we get too much into the YouTube stuff, because obviously there was that horrendous attack yesterday. It feels like 5 days can't go by without an active shooter incident. Right. We'll talk about that in a moment, but why don't we take a look at this for a minute just to clarify for everyone exactly who we've got here.
Okay, well, that's a great thought. And I think what we need to do here is, as in the case of all conspiracies, what the people who run the conspiracy want to do is get you in a place where you accuse them of operating a conspiracy, because then they can say you're a conspiracy theorist. It's kind of like a jiu-jitsu approach to, so, let's have a gigantic conspiracy, and then if anybody accuses us of conducting a conspiracy, we'll dismiss it.
Now, wait a minute. I'm glad you're saying that, Charles, because we're really getting inside the psychology of these clandestine agencies. The term conspiracy theorist was really weaponized by the CIA in 1963 when they, there's a quote, I think, from J. Edgar Hoover where he says, "We need to convince the public that Oswald was the only shooter." And they decided that anybody that's going to support any conspiracy theory other than that official story would be branded a conspiracy theorist, to the extent that today, in 2018, it seems most people feel that the term conspiracy theory inherently means something false. Right. Which it's just a hypothesis about a theory, conspiracy.
So what we have in this case, and actually, I didn't appreciate when I started on this mission really in 2007, but more recently in 2015 on the Clinton Foundation, I didn't assume that this conspiracy to trample the Constitution, to use electronic surveillance and other means to create vast wealth and then steal it and hide it, and I didn't assume that it would spread as much as it has spread. But if we pick off the various players that are just depicted on this great piece of artwork by your art department, working overtime as always. Let's start with Barack Obama. And I hate to use this expression, but I will use it. It's an old, I think, mafia term that a fish rots from the head. And under the Obama administration, and I would argue before that, under the George W. Bush administration, certainly under the Bill Clinton administration, arguably under the George H.W.
Definitely.
And maybe even before that, what we've had are a series of people who, run the gauntlet. I think it's actually spelled, not gauntlet, gauntlet, G-A-N-T-L-E-T. They run it. It's a tough road. I mean, as Hillary didn't find out because she really didn't run, but to run for president, to go through that vetting, to take on other people in the party.
She sort of slid face first.
That's right. That's right. How did that face plant look, Mommy? Not too good. But anyway, to get to that place, you'd think there'd be some vetting. That people would say, let's check a few things here and there and get to the bottom of it. But there's another theory, which is, maybe the people who stand behind this superstructure, the really big actors, crooks and billionaires, say, do we really want, kind of like I think what happened at GE, do we really want the best person to take over this mess? Or do we want somebody to stumble through it, so we can then blame it on him?
Right.
And similarly, do we really want, a top person to replace, Ronald Reagan? Or do we want Poppy, with all his problems, and all his skeletons in the closet?
In my view, George H.W. and his cronies of neocons controlled the Ronald Reagan presidency. He orchestrated, H.W. did, the Iran-Contra scandal before he was even elected vice president. So in some strange capacity, straddling his role as the director of the CIA, which ended in 1976, and the whole messing with Jimmy Carter's presidency in 1978, 1979, the Iran hostage crisis, the Iran-Contra scandal, selling them guns for their war with Iraq. These guys have been messing around with the Middle East since forever.
Right, well, that's probably a fair point. So you look at Barack Obama, and honestly, in the beginning, my first exposure to him, just watching him on television, was that great speech he gave in 2004. And I was fully expecting him out. The last thing I wanted to do during the summer of 2004, or was it 2000? Yeah, 2004, is listen to some junior state legislator or watch anything at all to do with the Democratic National Convention. I mean, it had to be nothing else on that summer, right? But I happened to watch it, and or at least maybe it was a replay of it or something. But it was impressive. It was damn impressive.
He's an impressive speaker.
It was damn impressive. And I thought to myself, this is really an unusual person to be able, with very little experience, to go into a room like that and blow all expectations away. Maybe there is something to this person, I thought, naively, foolishly, and stupidly, right? So anyway, he gets into power. He did run. There were some blemishes, but he ran, a really, amazing campaign. John McStain certainly did not. I mean, it was a ridiculous campaign.
He's a terrible guy.
He really is. And so we have, it's like we elevated for all the sins, and there are many of them in this country in race relations going decades back, and not simply in relations with African former slaves and actual slaves here, but relations with the Native American period. We had a lot that we need to examine and really try to make amends over. I think part of all, his initial elevation, not to president, but to demigod or near God, was all this guilt that we have as a nation. He said, all right, maybe we'll wash some of that away. We'll put this guy up on a pedestal and he can do no harm. Well, that didn't happen. And so, I think this process of now almost, I guess it's 1.5 years after he left the White House, I think we're beginning to see that some of the worst fears that people have, President Trump loves his nicknames. I hope he never comes up with one for me.
What do you call him? Cheating Obama?
Cheating Obama. That would have caused, he would have been banned on Twitter and, whatever, had he done that as a candidate.
I think Twitter did do something to Trump. They age restricted his tweets or something like that, or True Pundit has been having a lot of problems with Twitter as well. It's really crazy what some of these social media platforms are doing, and we'll deal with that. Right.
Well, let's just quickly go through these 12 names. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
So here in Rosenstein, there's a piece that somebody I know pretty well is working on, myself, on Mr. Rosenstein that should emerge to see the light of day here. He has got some very, very serious problems of credibility in his resume, of telling the whole truth about what he was really doing in the Whitewater investigation, his role in investigating Hillary Clinton over the Travelgate scandal. He's not been truthful, I don't think, about his resume, at least in versions that I've seen. But he is, as we'll get into some depth in a minute, he's very much involved multiple times in multiple aspects of these expanding Clinton Foundation frauds, that expanded, off from nothing, off the charts by 2001, into another universe, the one where Hillary is today president.
Bizarro world.
Bizarro world. All the while this guy is, now he's effectively running this he is supervising Mueller's investigation of his boss, the president. It's bizarro land, and this has got to end. And Mr. Trump, President Trump, you're making a lot of tough calls here. On this one, you've got to put your feet down now. I mean, people are with you on this. The polls, the real polls that make sense, are coming back and saying, look, we need a special counsel. We need a real team to go back to the very beginning here and say, listen, how did this whole mess start? How many secret memos are there? I was very disturbed to see, for example, that Mueller, to react to a claim that Manafort had made defending himself, surfaces this secret memorandum that Rosenstein had written in, I think, July, August 2017. I mean, how many other secret memos are there, not just by Rosenstein, but by all the other players going back into the Holder era, even before that? So, I'm sick and tired of hearing, some swamp rat or a chorus of swamp rats led by fake Yapper Tapper at CNN and say, oh, the distinguished Robert Mueller, I mean, he stands above reproach, he's a war hero. And similarly, Rosenstein, same idea. I want to understand exactly what this guy was doing at Justice under Clinton, what his wife was doing,
right?
Under Clinton, and all the potential business relationships and nexus of relationships that involve each of these players. President, the same question for all of them. With this guy, Brennan, I mean, what did his parents do to him? I mean, this is a guy who, frankly, I think he's older than I am, which makes him ancient.
Well, he's constantly pissed off.
Yeah, but
and just real quick, I'm sorry to interject, but before we get off of the special counsel thing, I just want to remind everybody that Larry Klayman is still asking to be appointed special counsel, and I realize he's a bit controversial from the standpoint of having gotten a judgment against Bill Clinton and all that kind of stuff. But Larry would definitely cut through the muck and drain the swamp. So I want to let people know that they can go to freedomwatchusa.org and they can sign this petition, and hopefully we can get Larry to be the special counsel. Sorry about that, Charles.
That's quite right. So if you think about John Brennan, he's a guy, I think he's in his mid-60s, raised in an Irish Catholic upbringing, went to, I forget if it was Fordham or Manhattan College or something like that, and decided to be a communist?
Yeah.
Really? And then, that qualified him to go work for the CIA. And ultimately to become the head of the CIA, having maybe learned how to speak Arabic and maybe converted to being, under
Wasn't
Obama.
he the head of the Jeddah, Saudi Arabia office and stamping the passports of the 19 hijackers from 9/11?
Yeah, this is something that we need to have, and enough of this baloney that you can't ask questions like that. Every person in every branch of every government inside the United States works for we the people.
Right.
It's not, we don't serve the government, they work for us. And so some tough questions need to be asked about who vetted this person and allowed that snake to be in top of the CIA, and how much damage has this snake done while at the CIA, and then in the transition period, then after the transition period, and how many other slithering snakes like Brennan are still wallowing in the swamp and engaging in what I would argue are treasonous acts. And why are we letting people get away with this? I don't understand it.
Now, I don't mean to keep interrupting, Charles,
okay.
but you are bringing up great points that deserve to be augmented by some little augmentations here. We have an interview on the Crowdsource The Truth 1 channel with FBI whistleblower Michael McMahon, who specifically had been talking about the problems with the vetting. And Michael's been trying to get in touch with President Trump to share his information, because just like Robin Gritz, when Michael came forward with this, he wasn't treated as a whistleblower, he wasn't protected, he was basically pushed out. And this is becoming a pattern that we see where honest agents within the FBI who have integrity, who want to make sure that the United States is safe, seem to be fired or forced to resign, right, or put through some sort of miserable situation that makes it impossible for them to do their job and protect us, which is not ideal by any means.
Right, and to those brave whistleblowers who have worked in harm's way for the benefit of all Americans, regardless of their political persuasion, these are people who need to be honored, and whistleblowers need to be protected, not attacked.
Yes.
And certainly dirty cops. I mean, we
worst.
started with, the President of the United States is the highest elected official, most powerful person in theory, in this country and on the planet. I mean, you can't have somebody on the top of the food chain who's prepared to break the law. And, so then we turn to Mr. Schmidt. I don't know a lot about him, but his name did come up an awful lot in the WikiLeaks Podesta emails. Mm-hmm. And the power that Google has, and we'll be talking about this in some depth, the power that these tech giants have, and the lax controls that they definitely seem to have, which would allow agents of hostile influence to gain access to incriminating information that could be used to blackmail people, to intimidate people, to steal money from people, to embarrass people, to move elections. That's a topic that I don't think the regulatory apparatus in the United States of America or in any advanced nation has moved fast enough to be able to truly manage this type of an entity. And we think about Google, now Alphabet, who's it controlled by? I'm not somebody who's like any Russian is a bad person, but Sergey Brin, I think, is a naturalized Russian. How carefully have we examined him? How carefully have we examined some of the tech insiders who hold big stakes in Google? And what sort of side arrangements does Google have with friendly politicians on the left that they want to support to let their technicians into the Google tent and troll around for information that might either reveal what a competitor is trying to do, or reveal what a political opponent might do, or allow you to prepare a dossier that might be used to get a FISA warrant, et cetera. I mean, this is just this nexus. I mean, Google's become so big, and I got no problem with people who are mega wealthy, because the ones I know who are mega wealthy are actually very careful about protecting their wealth and behaving honestly, because they're the most obvious targets for prosecution. So you better stay far away from the slime, but not so Mr. Schmidt.
Well, and furthermore, if it weren't for the mega wealthy, who would you play tennis with?
Well, you're part of them, so I can't say you.
Oh, right.
So anyway, then on the other side of the swamp, we've got
Mrs. Clinton.
Her fecklessness. I mean, this really heartfelt advice, and I've said this before, that in the modern era, the only people I know about, and I know a lot about my family, who had anything to do with politics were Democrats. Now, it is not in the interest of the Democratic Party to let this person go on one more speaking engagement or book tour. She's very, very reliable in that, she will do whatever is not in the interest of her own party. Give her a chance, and she's going to basically open a hand grenade, take the pin out of a hand grenade and eat it, a figurative hand grenade. And do you really want to do this? I mean, it's like this, it's a little bit gross, but I'll say it anyway since it runs in her family. It's like that, who's that cartoon character in, Jesus, what's the one, the one out in Colorado?
Colorado?
Yeah. The talking piece of,
Oh, South Park, Mr. Hanky.
I mean, it's just, enough. You lost. I mean, you didn't want to win. You rigged the primaries.
Yeah.
You forgot to fix the paperwork at the foundation. And then, you decided, well, it's a lot of work to run, so I'm not going to run. I'm not going to walk. I'm going to face plant.
The ambulance.
I'm going to drive, right, yeah. Hook myself up to, King Chardonnay or Queen Chardonnay and, go to the suite and, break the glass collection of Bill Clinton and her husband and figurine collection, break the glass ceiling, throw rocks at Trump Tower, and I'll be queen for the rest of my life. Well, that didn't happen.
I don't understand why she's not 50 points ahead.
And then we have, the lascivious, not so much, Uma Abedin. Speaking of vetting, who in the hell vetted this person?
Saudi intelligence?
Not even. I mean, this is somebody, we now have Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I never met him. I don't think I met him, but I certainly met his eldest brother many times. And the young guy strikes me as a pretty smart guy. But, I mean, even he admitted recently, the last 24, 48 hours, that elements within Saudi Arabia were financing ISIS and hostile actions against the United States of America. So we know from there where we now also, well, they managed to get all kinds of information out of the Saudis by, taking my, I won't say nemesis, but, another person who's on, Al-Walid, and hanging him upside down. They must have gotten a lot of information about that. Why aren't they cross-checking what Saudi Arabia is most likely wrapped up in a gigantic, set of gift bags for, the Trump team? Why don't we start cross-checking what is in her record and what is in the records of the various people who should have vetted Uma Abedin, and cross-check that against what Saudis are telling us and what other people around the world are not telling. This, to me, is one of the, this is Mata Hari, in my view, and, comes on the heels of revelations that Anna Chapman, somebody I did have the pleasure of meeting, actually, just meeting, and, but it was rumored she was sent possibly against the United States of America to try to corrupt a member of the cabinet. Now I wonder who that might have been.
Who?
Hillary.
Oh, Anna Chapman. Oh.
Maybe.
Wow.
So.
Well, wait, Charles, what is it that MBS, was that on his trip to New York that he revealed information about?
It's in the last 24-hour news cycle.
He was in New York, wasn't he?
I think so. It might have been, yeah. Might have been when he was, hanging with his homie, Lloyd Blankfein.
I don't know that
You see
guy.
the two pictures of them with beards?
I did not see that.
It was pretty, it wasn't a picture I would have taken. Lloyd shaved the beard. Doesn't look good. Does not look good. Then we have, here we have Loretta Lynch. Now, this is, I hadn't really concentrated upon Loretta Lynch that much until very recently.
Now she's in trouble.
Well, I looked into her background, and I only now have realized that she went to work for Hogan Lovells. It used to be called Hogan Hartson, but she was working there in 2009 and 2010. So as the Clinton Foundation was being reorganized, and I believe that firm was used, I know that firm was used. It took over responsibility in 2007 for managing the Clinton family and the Clinton family, or Bill and Hillary, and the Clinton Family Foundation's tax filings. So they have, this firm has massive exposure, in my view, based on what I've seen in the public filings, and I'm not a lawyer, but I consult with lawyers, and what they're telling me about, what you filed and what the state and federal and other laws are, you knowingly have filed false and materially misleading tax returns.
The best kinds.
The best kind, and guess what? Ain't no statute of limitations on some of this stuff.
Wow.
So she was in the center of all this, and guess who is, I'm beginning to sound like George a little bit here, but guess who is the managing partner of Hogan Lovells?
Isn't it Comey's brother or something?
Jeff Immelt's brother.
Immelt's brother. You said that last week, and I forgot it last week also.
And so, there starts to be, there's as many coincidences.
It's so incestuous, right? They all know each other and family members and everything.
It's the swamp fraternity. And then,
It's
look
swamp.
at this guy. I mean,
I tried to select the best possible photo of all of these subjects.
This is a picture when he just found out he won $1 billion in the lottery, right?
Something like that.
I mean, this is a nasty human being. How, how Uma Abedin and this fellow ever came together and produced a child is a mystery I don't want to explore. But I mean, one thing I think we do need to explore, and Sean Hannity, who is really doing fantastic work with Sarah Carter and Seb Gorka and a whole bunch of other people, and Janine Pirro and others at Fox, and Ed Henry have been bringing up this issue, and Brett Baer, of the laptop that we brought up many months ago. And there is, again, in the FBI vault file, there is a special thing we showcased it many times about, you know, when that laptop may have been found, why did the laptop remain sequestered in New York, who was responsible for that decision, why did they sit on it for as long as they sat on it, what may have happened to that laptop, was it altered, were there other computers or devices that were found but not turned over, you know, and sent somewhere else. Remember that incident where a member of, I think, the FBI had laptops stolen?
Oh, out of a car?
Out of a car. Is that connected?
Well, the Secret Service had it stolen out of a motorcycle.
Yeah.
What is evidence doing in a motorcycle?
Exactly. And so, you know, instead of this, you know, this trust me approach to life, where we, you know, I don't know if you remember in the very beginning those crazy videos of people reacting to Barack Obama being president, and they're behaving like he was some kind of, you know, behaving the way those people in the South Pacific behaved when, you know, wreckage from various rockets washed up on the shore on some remote island, and all these people start saying, oh, we better worship you, you're a god. I mean, instead of looking at this like, you know, we could just trust everybody, you know, the Pope has said there's no hell recently, right?
Well, I mean,
he did. He said there's no hell, so there's nothing to worry about. Oh. So now we can go in.
Why did he say that?
I don't know. That's called cannibalizing the business model, yeah. Right? I'm going to rush out and do a lot of catechisms.
By the way, we've been pulling your leg for 2,000 years.
There's no hell. Oh, of course there's no hell.
Well, maybe they just renovated
it. But anyway, we need to go back over this ground. And I've got to say and thank you and the resilient members of the Crowdsource the Truth community who've been sticking with you and with us. I was walking over here just now, and somebody yelled out, Charles Ortel, I watch you all the time. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Just walking down 6th Avenue. Thank you, whoever you are. Appreciate it. And to the audience. But, you know, we now have a team of people who is engaged, who knows how to reach out to these officials and reach out to the regulators and reach out to the media people and ask these tough questions and make sure this video gets around and goes on as many platforms as possible. For that, Jason and I are eternally grateful to you. We are making progress. The purpose of this show today is to explain to you how we are closing in and how we are raising the temperature and redoubling and retripling, whatever the right phrase, our efforts. As Emeril Lagasse likes to say, or Lagasse, however you pronounce his name, you know, we're kicking it up a notch.
Yeah.
Bam!
Yeah. And, you know, Charles, it's really interesting because I've noticed that, you know, the more work I do with you, giving you this regular assistance to have a platform to bring all the information forward, and it's a platform that you control, you're determining the amount of time and exactly what we talk about, whereas maybe some other, you know, people have told me they go on, you know, whatever Fox or whatever channel, and they kind of like direct the interviews and what's said and whatever. So this is valuable in that regard, that you can really put together and have an amazing, you know, just array of information. And so the more work we do together, and then Harmon Wilfred and Carolyn Dare Wilfred would bring their story out, it's just the attack on Crowdsource the Truth, and me personally, has intensified so much.
Sorry to hear that.
I don't really mind because I can deal with it, but it's just from observing it, from the standpoint of observing it, it's interesting. Because if I had no credibility, then why would people have to tell people that? Everyone could just watch and I would act in a way that would reveal that. But it seems quite clear that it's the opposite.
Well, if you had no credibility, you'd be running CNN.
That's right. But you know, it's interesting because just like right at the moment that we did that, well, I did that phone call with quite clearly an agent of disinformation on the American intelligence media channel, cratering their subscribers that had recently gone up to over 60,000. We put a major dent in that, 5% or something between 5 and 10% decrease in one day due to him death threatening me and saying nonsense. And Crowdsource the Truth went up about 3,000 to 4,000 subscribers in a 1 or 2 day period. Additionally, as I begin to bring out more evidence that seems to support the allegations that the Steemit, blockchain-driven, cryptocurrency-backed social media network appears that it may be a financial scam, a complex financial scam that is also being used to control the narrative in terms of independent news and social media, something else that we need to talk about. But I had a call from someone who said he was very concerned that I have 57,000 subscribers who are hearing me say Steemit appears to be a scam. The next day, anonymous malicious attacks on videos on Crowdsource the Truth resulted in Crowdsource the Truth, the first Crowdsource the Truth channel, being no longer able to upload videos or live stream videos. So it's very important that everybody watching be aware that we now have Crowdsource the Truth 2.0, or sorry, I didn't mean to click that. We have Crowdsource the Truth 2 here, which is a different channel that people should be subscribing to. And look at what it's done to the subscribership, from 57,000 down to just under 2,000. And I mean, you know,
but how long have you been running this?
Well, this has only been running since Monday, so it's good that we've got 2,000 subscribers since Monday, but we really need to get that number back up to 57,000 to send the message that you can't stop the truth.
You could try, but it's not going to work.
They're going to fail.
Or it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen,
right?
No.
Nice book, not so much.
Now, YouTube has had some serious problems as well.
Right, I think it's worth, what I was going to suggest we talk about for a minute is this whole idea of fake businesses. And, you know, Facebook has now had to admit that, you know, where they said Zuckerberg said in 1999, we're never going to sell your information. Well, actually, we sold 87 million. You know, where
never came early this year.
Yeah, exactly. Does now work for you? Anyway. This idea that, you know, like in the entertainment business, you know, it's really frustrating for a banker, a former banker like me, who's used to counting things and used to the notion that in double entry bookkeeping, you can actually always cross-check the books. That's the virtue of them. You know, the books don't balance, you know something's wrong and it's a fraud. That's why GE was a fraud and is a fraud, and that's why the Clinton Foundation is a fraud. But with this entertainment business, people are prepared to accept the idea that, you know, nobody really knows how many tickets were sold for the concert. Nobody really knows who bought the books that you wrote. Nobody really knows if your royalties are right. And now nobody really knows, with the Twitter, with the Facebook, with Google and Instagram and others, how many subscribers there really are who are distinct people and not bots.
Right. And
nobody really knows, you know, in these measurements on advertising effectiveness, nobody really knows whether the actual math and the algorithms are straight. And to me, you know, instead of having these people, you know, walk around lecturing the rest of us on how, you know, the world really works, when no part of this seems to be actually working, I think we should go back to base principles and say, you know, if Mike Bloomberg, you're going to force me as a restaurant owner, you know, to put how many calories there are in each thing that I'm going to sell, okay, then you really should be, in the same token, in the, you know, the big media markets where subscribers are valuable, you should be forced, as Google, as Twitter, as anyone who's done this model of providing something for free, to explain to the person who's giving the valuable information away just how valuable that information is and just how much risk you run actually using the service if the company's ability to control, you know, what it does with the data is not, you know, managed properly, as would appear from the O'Keefe interactions and other, just common sense. We see what Snowden did. You know, he was a contractor. How much information did he steal? You know, how many other Snowdens are lurking in the woodwork at Google, at Twitter, at Facebook, at Yahoo?
With everybody's information.
With everybody's information. And, you know, how many people are there who are prepared to act outside government and say, you know, all right, I know you can't, Jim Brennan will say, I know, or John Brennan, I can't do this as head of the CIA, but nothing's going to stop some idiot drunk, you know, in a wine bar in London from deciding he's going to play Mr. Fix-It, and be a contractor, off the books contractor, and so get into Google and steal all this information. I think, Zuckerberg, Schmidt, Dorsey at Twitter, others have a lot of explaining to do, and it shouldn't just be a choreographed thing as happened with the hedge fund guys, after the crash, where they all get on their private jets and go into, or the car companies go into Washington D.C. and have the swamp creatures who still are there in Congress, who depend on these tech giants for contributions and help and campaign assistance. We got to have a real robust debate about which starts with finding out
what happened,
then asking what went wrong, then asking how do we make sure that what went wrong doesn't happen again, and then holding people truly accountable. So I find it very odd that this Eric Schmidt guy, first of all, figures in the mix as much as he does. Second, resigned abruptly from Google right after the executive order. Third, that Eric Braverman may be
working for his foundation.
For his, quotes, foundation. All of that makes me really, really want to ask a lot of questions with subpoena power, with grand juries in panel, of everyone who's up on this page. Especially, we haven't talked about the big dog there.
Yeah, right. We forgot about all the guys in the middle.
Or Comey, who's going to be profiting from his crimes with his book, which I'm sure they're going to, every lunatic in America and book club in America he's suddenly going to be a darling. And then we have McCabe. I mean, the notion that McCabe should be able to raise over $500,000 so quickly, and that nobody would say, oh, wait a minute.
How did he raise that much money? I see people put up GoFundMe with little babies have cancer, they don't get $500,000 in a weekend. Who's giving this jerk, who's got a Porsche and a mansion and a wife with a huge job? Like, why does he need money?
Well, see, and this going back to Barack Obama, who, I'll say something nice about him, because I seldom, always like, you're always so
What have you done with Charles?
No, I'll say one thing nice. It was a very funny picture that he put out on Easter Sunday. Of him next to an Easter egg. It was really, actually quite funny.
I didn't see it. Yeah. He does have a good sense of humor and comedy timing. And as far as like recent presidents, he's definitely the most well-spoken and the best orator.
Not compared to Reagan.
That's 30 years ago, first of all. But like any Bush, and I mean, whatever.
With low standards.
Yeah, it's true.
But so. Where were we on that one, though?
Well, we got the big dog, Billy Boy, Bubba,
and we got Comey, and we got McCabe, and then we've got Mueller.
Mueller pulling up the rear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I tried to put those four screwballs right in the middle, and then their supporting characters all around them. Right. The dirty dozen, Charles.
Right, and so, the president has been there for, as I say, it's now, 16 months or so? And he's making, it's against great odds. He's fighting Republicans, he's fighting Democrats, he's fighting bureaucrats, he's fighting media, he's fighting everybody. And I think he's beginning to make some progress, which is why the swamp is now throwing so much mud at him and, reacting, perhaps going after you, and others the way they're going after you. But, it's really time to look at this for a second and say, no, wait a minute. Mark Zuckerberg, he's not that smart. I mean, we go back, you've met, we won't mention his name, but a mutual friend of ours is way older than I am, and his children grew up with the Winklevoss twins.
Ooh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and they went to the same school, lived in the same town, et cetera. And so the point is that, there's a school of thought that Zuckerberg didn't just come up with this idea on his own. He may have appropriated or taken, or whatever, however you want to use, the brainchild of the Winklevoss people and ballooned it up and had this heady success. And now he believes that he can't do anything wrong and he's qualified to be president of the United States running in a T-shirt. I don't think so.
He speaks Chinese. Charles, people have told me that somehow through Harvard University and the CIA that Mark Zuckerberg was tapped as the spokesperson to be the young genius who invented it, and that it's a CIA thing where they want to get everybody's information, and that's the cover story. Is that true?
I have no idea, but it stands to reason. I mean, if you think about, if your goal is to collect information, right? if that's what you're trying to do. And if it's illegal to spy inside the borders of the United States on American citizens, what better way to collect information than to offer catnip, at a young age to people who
just give it to you.
Just give them some catnip. You give it to them. You see these people; they drive me crazy. Walking down the street now, they have headphones in. The men wear these stupid caps and these beards. I call them scruffies.
Hipsters.
Scruffies is what I call them. It was a new term, like scruffy. And they walk down the street looking at their cell phones with headphones in, probably on Facebook or Instagram, posting pictures of the half-eaten bagel with cream cheese that they just had, if that's what they're having, or some vegan salad, or I don't know what, And
people are saying "Zuck the schmuck."
Yeah, and it's just,
stole it.
We need to go back through this and say, look, a business, the category of businesses that don't actually sell anything to a customer, that become gigantic by giving something away.
Yeah.
It stands to reason that there's a trick. It's like a magic trick, right? You're not just giving something away for nothing and suddenly you're the richest person in America. I mean, there's got to be something that you're not telling the counterparty you're doing. And I don't think the business people, the regulators, are smart enough yet, prepared to act as tough as they should be acting on this. And you're right. I mean, there could well be, people in government said, look, we'd love to find out more information about people. And, and in particular, what we'd love to be able to do is predict behavior by lumping people together in buckets and saying, there's, probably somebody just like you and somebody just like me, or people we share tastes and interests. If you do a big enough sample size of those people, you can begin to say, here are the boundaries that a person of this age, with this intelligence, with this background, with these interests, is more often than not going to have 1.2 cars of this variety, and like this type of food versus that type, and at this time of day do this and that. And it's that suddenly that information becomes incredibly valuable if you could marry it up with information about their physical location. And
well, that's happening. I mean, people checking in. I never got into that checking in. I don't know why people want to advertise where they are, but this big data, the algorithms they can apply, particularly, I mean, I've been on Facebook since 2007 or 8. So it's like 11 years of like every day, what's on your mind, where you've been, pictures of your friends. I mean, that's an astounding array of information that they have. And I think Twitter is another really important one that I see no ads ever on Twitter. I don't know how they make money. And most people are, it's very political, a lot of news. Obviously, President Trump being very focused on Twitter has put kind of a new focus or a renewed focus on it. And I just always wonder, like, why do people want, the owners of Twitter, the investors in Twitter, why do they want that? It seems to be they can control now what's coming out, the news, just in the same way that the YouTube channel gets shut down by an anonymous complaint. I disagree with that policy.
Totally
when I
disagree.
complain about people who are stealing my intellectual property, it says Jason Goodman has complained about this, and the crybabies who think that I'm doing fraudulent complaints, these are legitimate complaints from people who have stolen the property. It's not just some mysterious, oh, you bullied someone, we don't know who it is or what it was that you said, but trust us, you're no longer allowed to speak.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what my father, who's very much still alive and still an inventor at almost 92, is fond of saying is that you're not really doing much that's distinctive if you're merely using technology to reduce the cost of a previous means of doing something. But if you use technology to do something different, radically different, offer something that's radically different and distinguishable in a positive sense, that's extremely valuable. And back on the comment that you made, why I enjoy interacting with you and this whole experience, but I used to be somebody who watched a fair amount of Fox News. And now it's almost comical to watch Fox News. I mean, I do like many of the anchors and many of the guests, but I'm really sick and tired of sitting there and watching something at 7 o'clock, and first it's a commercial about adult diapers. Then it's St. Jude. Then it's Cars for Kids, which
Pills
is that idiot My Pillow. And you go on, and the cadence, it may be too much for us to be going 2.5, 3.5 hours or whatever, but that's how conversations happen back and forth. You don't sit there when you're going out with friends at a restaurant, something comes along, now it's time to break to our sponsors.
Right.
They have adult diapers, My Pillow, and
Yeah.
And on My Pillow, I just want to ask the people at Fox News, it's a pretty simple calculation to say, all right, how many people are there in America who use pillows?
All.
Right. Well, okay, but not the little kids, right? So tiny little babies don't use. But so you do the math and you say, all right, how many homes are there? How many pillows are there? How long do they last? Why does this guy need to be on television 24/7 selling pillows? And what's he really doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
The pillows don't bother me that much, and I don't watch broadcast news or even regular television really hardly at all anymore. But if I'm at the gym or something like that, sometimes it's on. I find there is a really astounding amount of pharmaceutical advertising, and I object to that. Another reason why I started Crowdsource the Truth was because I really feel that corporate-owned, advertiser-driven news can never bring you an honest perspective. Because just like in that movie Vaxxed, when a story comes out that's unfavorable to an advertiser, even without directly stating it, there is enormous pressure on that outlet to not speak badly about the advertiser. That's why I constantly remind people that this is a community-sponsored resource. We are not monetizing on YouTube, and the recent attack on the channel and the need to go to Crowdsource the Truth 2 is a perfect example of what I'm always talking about. Right at the moment where we're talking about possible scams on Steemit, we're talking about Harmon Wilford revealing the financial crimes of the deep state, the pressure is mounting on the Clintons and all of their associates and covering their crimes. There's a lot of ways that strikes can come to the channel and knock it out. Now, if I and Crowdsource the Truth had come to rely on the financial support of money coming from YouTube, all that would be gone right now. Yeah. So I definitely want to thank all the regular sponsors that we have on Patreon. And the funny bit of news for those malicious, anonymous attackers of the channel is that despite the fact that they've cratered the subscribership here on YouTube, there's been an amazing outpouring of support from the Crowdsource community on Patreon. And we've actually added a tremendous number of Patreon sponsors. We've got over 360 Patreon sponsors now, Charles. And when we had 57,000 subscribers, really if only 10% of 57,000 sponsored for $1 per month, the company would remain financially healthy and able to travel around to the different places, cover the news stories, and keep everything going. So I definitely want to encourage people, do not let malicious, anonymous individuals or hackers or whoever might want to attack the truth, don't let them win. Become a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth, even if it's just for $1, $5, whatever it might be. And it really allows us to keep going and do all this great work. But Charles, I've been yapping. Should we get into the slides, or should we talk about YouTube a little bit?
Well, I would like to actually take a quick second. Let's talk about YouTube, but let's first talk. You mentioned people attacking controversial opinions by going after their advertisers. So one of the people I have a friend named Mark Tapscott who is an editor at LifeSet, which is an organization originally created by Laura Ingraham, and now I think majority owned by a Canadian billionaire. And so because he asked if I would write a few things, I decided I would. And he's a great guy. That's him, actually.
Well, that's Laura. Oh, sorry, that is Mark. Yes, I had another one of Laura. Should we show?
Sure.
Okay, so we've got Mark Tapscott here.
And anyway, so last week, what happened is that after the shooting incident, the Parkland shooting incident, and after what I would argue the grandstanding of this guy, this young 17-year-old Hogg, or whatever his name is, David Hogg, is it?
Yes.
Laura made some snarky tweet about, making fun of him for complaining about not getting into college. And the universe erupted.
Yeah.
And David Brock at Media Matters, decided the way to respond to that would be to put a list of her advertisers out and then encourage his organization to go after those advertisers and tell them not to advertise on Fox.
Why is that not tortious interference?
It is outrageous behavior. And so I had previously reported David Brock and Media Matters to, New York's hack Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and of course nothing happened.
Yeah.
But that stunt last week prompted me to go back into my files and to then research the file a little bit more carefully. So what I discovered is quite interesting, and it's in the process of being, it's being written up. I have written a draft, editors are reacting to it, it'll be emerging shortly, but I'll give you the short preview, which is, if you want to get into a convoluted discussion and debate with political scientists about, whether or not what Brock is doing is partisan or not partisan, whether it's okay to have a charity coordinate with an action organization and have right-leaning charities attack candidates versus their action organization, which shares common resources like office space and personnel, whether that's proper, you can have that debate, and that's very interesting. But Brock has made it so simple. He's of the Clinton school, We don't need to follow no stinking rules.
Right.
So you've got to start at the very beginning when you examine the Laura Ingraham issue. What you have to do is you have to ask a very simple question. Indeed, the simplest question of all. Is Media Matters an organization? Is it actually lawfully organized everywhere where it needs to be organized? And the answer to that question is ixnay. It is not. And then, more importantly, what they did, they thought they were being really super clever, and that they'd create something called Media Action Network. Okay?
Media Matters Action.
Action Network. Media Matters Action Network. And that would be the entity that would basically torture conservative organizations for their, quote, misinformation. The only problem with that is, or there are many problems with that. The first problem with that is they created this organization, or attempted to create this organization, using the same lawyers, the same people, eventually the same accounting firm, and the same illegal fundraiser.
As the Clinton Foundation?
No, as their charity, their supposed charity. Okay. And they didn't file any of their paperwork properly. So the way this works, if you read, and we have it all laid out, you can go to the Clinton Foundation site, my site, talking about the Clinton Foundation, where I say concentrate on Clinton Foundation facts. There's something called the organizational test, and then there's something called the operational test. And you've got to pass both tests. It's not like, extra credit or something like that. You either were lawfully organized the day you started, or you weren't.
Pretty binary.
And if you weren't, you're not a charity, you're not an organization, you're nothing, you're a nebbish.
What's the IRS code for that? SOL?
Exactly right. Well done. Yeah. So in the case of the charity, Media Matters for America, that was created in Washington, D.C. on August 15th, 2003. Okay? Now the problem with that is that it may not have been created the way it needed to be created. Lawyers may have incorporated it, but the directors didn't get together and immediately bind themselves as a real entity operating under the Articles of Incorporation that day that they were organized. So from a technical legal matter, it may not have actually been properly organized that day. They didn't even pass bylaws. Bylaws are the companion documents which regulate how the inner workings of a corporation function. So if you don't have bylaws in existence until 2 years later, it's going to be kind of tough to have any board minutes. Because you had no board established, no procedures established.
And you sure they didn't have the same people who did the Clinton Foundation?
It's a twofer, yeah. You did such a great job with this. Can you help us out? Anyway, so you look at the Media Matters for America, the charity, has a problem with I won't get into all the minutiae now, but it has a problem with the Articles of Incorporation. It didn't create bylaws until 2 years later in 2005. It may not have actually had a separate real office. And it immediately, it said what it was going to do was correct misinformation.
Right.
But to raise money, it said, we're a progressive organization that will only correct conservative misinformation.
What?
Which is not, the way I look at it, you know, there are problems with that approach. But the biggest problem is that you're sitting there in Washington, D.C., and you're trying to raise money, okay? Is there a big market inside, not Maryland, not Virginia, Washington, D.C. itself is a small town filled with poor people in the main. There is not a big market in Washington, D.C. of ready cash for, you know, charitable donations. So please explain to me how this thing raised something like $8 million in 2005 without registering in New York and California, which are the two biggest places where you're going to raise a lot of money, the high tax, income tax states where people give a lot of money. Please tell me how you did that without going to, you know, New York and California to raise money. And the answer is
selling pizza.
Possibly, but they did. They did go as a guest. The records will show because they have high travel expenses. And then, you know, if you're going to raise money, our states, they may not know this down in Washington, D.C., because it's a swamp. You look at the picture.
Right.
You're used to living in the swamp. New York actually has rules. And, you know, they've co-opted the Attorney General, in my view, because he should have landed on this a long time ago. If you look at the rules, you look at the regulations that exist in New York, that exist in California, you may not raise money in this town using the services of a fundraiser unless that fundraiser, or fundraising council, there are various technical terms for them, is actually vetted and registered in advance in New York. And they're using a firm called the Bonner Group, which I don't see as being registered in New York, and I see it as being in deep trouble in California for various reasons. So you start looking at this, and forget the debate about is it okay for a charity to, you know, to only attack Laura Ingraham because she's a conservative and she's gone up against a progressive. Forget all that.
Well, they also attack Laura Loomer.
Yeah, but it's, okay, they don't like Laura.
All Lauras.
Yeah, Laura. Anyway, I happen to like Laura, Loomer and Ingraham. But anyway, so the point, the bigger question is to ask is there any evidence that, you know, Media Matters for America, the charity, is actually an organization? And I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests it isn't.
You mean an organization, a charity?
No, forget getting to, this is the Stuart Dean point, forget getting to whether it's a charity. Was it duly constituted as a corporation first?
Oh.
Has it been registered properly in every place where it needs to be registered as a corporation?
Wow.
Okay, and I can tell you that media, you found it, you know, the media.
Well, we'll look at that.
Yeah, okay.
What about Andrew Kerr and the Citizens
Oh yeah, he's
audit?
a great guy.
He's done great work. I was just showing that. So
Andrew Kerr is somebody that
we should have him on.
He's at the Daily Caller. I can ask if he'd come on. Sure, he and I are frequently in contact, and he has done monumentally good work.
Yeah.
So on the subject then of you know, anonymous people shutting down channels, and even
this is where they're coming from.
Yeah, anonymous people registering complaints, and anonymous people. I mean, I believe Barack Obama has, you know, anonymous followers, many of them, millions of them on Twitter. Maybe Trump does too. And other. That's got to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine to say that, you know, you go in there and you give your information away. If you're going to be attacking people, you know, you should have to show your face to the attacker.
Yes.
Right. You shouldn't be able to do what is happening, and it is completely nonsensical. Even if you're giving these rights away in a legal agreement, for a large company as powerful and as big as Google is today, to have all the benefits and Facebook and Twitter that each of those companies have, Instagram, in this great country, it's kind of absurd that, you know, they could set up this approach here where anonymous people can torture you, and where the company, you know, won't work with you to stop actual death threats.
Right.
You know, but will allow anonymous people to make spurious claims and, you know, put you out of business. That's too much power to put in the hands of tech weasels.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're in Silicon Valley or New York Alley, wherever
Phoenix,
they are,
Arizona,
or wherever they may be, Phoenix. You know, it's just too much power to give to anybody. And Congress, I think, has abdicated responsibility for this, and actual people are being harmed. You, Laura Loomer, and others. So this is something that we need to really elevate in the public sphere and debate.
Yeah, I'm definitely making it a priority to bring it to the attention of YouTube and other social media platforms that it's fine for people to want to be anonymous on the internet. However, if you want to create content on Twitter or YouTube, and by that I mean video content or comments, you need to be able to show who you are. And if someone's going to make a complaint against you, it should say this person, even if their public account is a nickname or a handle. If you want to be the great Ortel on Twitter, when you say, hey, this person is doing such and such a crime, and take down their Twitter account, take down their YouTube video, it should say, this person has accused you, you have 24 hours to work it out with them or eliminate the offending content, and if you don't, your account will be penalized. Then you can handle it however you handle it. You take down the video, you could make the separate channel where your ugly stepchildren videos go, and leave your main platform there doing what it's doing. So we're going to definitely take that directly to Google, directly to YouTube. I think people know I've been in contact with lawyers at YouTube. I've been in direct contact with the FBI, and I am personally going to really dig into this subject, because even though a lot of these people, including David Brock, think they're smart and they've figured out a way to game the system, it's not going to continue.
Right.
It will not.
That's right. You're right.
All right. So what else do we want to go to here, Charles?
Let's go to the next page.
Okay, the slides, yeah?
Yeah, not to the videotape, or to, which would be the first page.
Let's go to the first page here. Sorry about that.
It's
okay, of course. Boy, that was quite a chat. Well, it's, you know, we haven't spoken to each other in a couple days, so it's good to rant like that.
That's good.
Dirty dozen, Charles.
I know, it's great. They don't need no stinking soap, they think. We're bringing them some soap.
Wasn't that the Treasure of Sierra Madre where they don't need no stinking badges?
Was it really?
I think that's what
you would know. I don't know. I'm not a movie guy.
Yeah.
But so on this one, you know, what I'd like to just say is sort of maybe a brief commercial for the crowd is that the ideas that come pouring our way are excellent, many of them. And I think as this continues and as it evolves, we're going to want to start featuring more and more of them. So when people have, as happened in the past, you know, images that they share or even videos that they share, we're not going to show everything, but those that do rise to the top, we definitely will feature and encourage that kind of creativity. That's the kind of stuff that we've benefited, each of us, Jason and I have benefited from this type of approach. And we really are grateful to you in the crowd who are out there thinking about us and thinking about, you know, how to move this forward. There's many of you, thankfully, are reaching out to legislators and pushing on the Clinton Foundation and other matters, Wilford's case, Jan's work, Jan Weinberg's work. And it takes time. You know, we're not going up against some little cream puff. We're going up against swamp creatures who've been in Washington, D.C., the swamp since it was created. It's always been a swamp.
These are serious people, Charles.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's why we're getting this resistance. I mean, obviously, you mess around with these multi-billion-dollar and multi-million-dollar scams, there's a lot of petty cash to handle situations like this.
Right. So we say we're closing in because actually there's some very important deadlines that are coming up, and most people don't understand because they're very sloppy about this. Most people don't have a lot of experience with filing charity forms. We're now going to take you in. We've sort of been operating at the very general level. We're now going to go down into a little bit more detail, which is probably going to cause your head to spin. But when you start thinking about this Clinton fraud at state level, you know, there are 50 different states last time. I know 57. There are 50 different states, and there's Washington, D.C., and there are cities that regulate charities and have their own special rules as well.
Wow.
And so when you sit there in Washington, D.C., Mr. Brock, and Media Matters, and your Media Matters Action Network, when you sit there and you think that what you can do is send a form using the mail across state lines into New York and lie about it, make it, you know, a material omission or a material false statement on a form that you sent using the mail, and you think that that's going to have no negative repercussions to yourself, you may want to read the sentencing memo that Corinne Brown had to listen to. And you may want to consider Corinne Brown's case. You've raised, David Brock, over $100 million that's known so far, just in the charity, in the false charity.
Who's giving money to that?
George Soros, people
Yeah,
like
I was going to say the same people who are paying Andrew McCabe.
Exactly, that's right. It's, yeah, I'll give $100 million to Brock, I'll give half, whatever.
Crazy.
It's probably not even their money, for all we know. But anyway, there are some very, very serious problems. Now, I have known about these problems for some time, but it's taken a certain amount of time to get the crowd and the general public in a place where they'd be willing to think about the problems. So if you thought there were problems at the federal level that have been ignored, now we're going to show you some of the problems at the state level, and we're going to step it up. We've got articles coming out in various publications, I've been doing interviews and radio, they're going to start coming out now. And we also have people, other organizations are looking at this and saying, oh, wait a minute, we thought the guy just had a problem at the federal level. Holy smokes, So there are Republican attorneys general and Republican governors in key states, and there are many well-meaning people in the infrastructure of these charity organizations who are already horrified, and it's just going to take that one match, and we're going to start throwing matches 24/7.
Yes.
And so today we're hats off to the people and thank to people in the crowd who've been putting up with this temporary interruption. It was inadvertent, and it was not your fault.
I got a lot of emails from people, where's Sunday with Charles? There was no, we had Easter, but also I was straightening out the problem with the channels. I wasn't able to get Crowdsource the Truth 2.0 online until Monday. So that's why we didn't have Sunday with Charles, and we'll be back, of course, this Sunday, but that was just a temporary setback, Charles.
That's all right. So if we move to the second page, and we'll get through this kind of quick. This is the standard disclaimer. We talk about it before. It's very important to understand. We're broadcasting this from the United States of America, where we absolutely have First Amendment rights. And the analysis that we are providing to you on all topics, but in particular on this Clinton Foundation analysis, it is following now more than 3 years study of public filings around the world. The more you study, the more you learn, the more you see. And wherever possible, we do try to provide the background materials to people so they can check for yourselves. I have to say, and probably for saying this I'll get 1,000 complaints, but in all the hours that we've done this, I have not had a single email or comment come back to me, this is wrong or that's wrong or whatever is wrong. So, look, people make mistakes, and we're going to open the show explaining that the last time we did a presentation, I made a mistake because, we were slapping this thing together. There was a lot going on. I thought I'd gotten to the end of the presentation. I was looking at the clock. We were running close to 2 hours, and I thought to myself, I must have finished, and lo and behold, I went back when I got home, and I was thinking, and I said, wait a minute, did we talk about this? And if you go to the next slide, well, actually, here's the curated thing, which I think still works, the playlist.
Well, exactly, and that's what I wanted to also point out to people to clarify, is that even though live streams and new broadcasts are coming at us from the Crowdsource the Truth 2 YouTube channel, we still have Crowdsource the Truth active on YouTube. So that is, I do apologize because it's a little confusing for people to get to all this different information, but we still have our 57,000 subscribers on Crowdsource the Truth, which of course was my original YouTube channel under my name, but we just can't add new videos to that for 3 months, that's like almost 25% of the time I've been doing this, so it's a substantial setback, but it's okay. People can still check out the playlist and see all the previous episodes of Sunday with Charles there, and I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to make a new playlist over here, but I don't know if I can.
What we could do is we could think about, we're just fly specking as we speak here, we could, or fly swatting, whatever the right phrase is, we could consider going back over the playlist and saying, and do a new introduction and say, with the benefit of hindsight, in this first video, what you really should watch for now, given that so much time has passed, you need to reconsider this first video and understand these 5 points. This is really important. And just do that for all of them.
Almost like a
repackage it.
Charles Ortel Cliff's Notes.
Not Cliff's Notes, but yeah, just give it a sort of, it's kind of like one of those, I used to like, or I still like the Jackie Chan movies, you know, for the outtakes.
Oh yeah,
almost, those are almost,
Jackie Chan breaking his legs all the time, and whatever he might be doing. But
it's not going to be breaking any legs.
Right. It also may be possible that I can add videos to the playlist that aren't on that channel. So maybe we'll keep the original playlist and just the new videos will be added there. We'll check that out and see how that goes.
So this was a slide that actually was prepared in its entirety the last time we were together, which I think was a week ago, right? So we wrote this. You and I did this a week ago, okay? And what had happened right before we did this is that there'd been a lot of chatter about our friend Joe diGenova and his wife were going to join the Trump team, and everybody was all really excited about it. And then somehow, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how conflicts of interest, what sort of conflicts of interest diGenova and Tensing may have that would have precluded him and his wife from representing the president. But when I saw that, I thought to myself, now wait a minute. If you're telling me that Joe diGenova and Victoria Tensing can't represent Trump because they have conflicts, how in the hell that does exist does Robert Mueller, do Rod Rosenstein, do James Comey's, I think, going to be a material witness in this, along with the other guys, in the end of any real Clinton Foundation probe? How in the hell does Rosenstein and Mueller, how do they have the ability to do what they're doing now and have been doing against the president, against the various people in this witch hunt that some have argued was illegal from the start, that should never happen in the start? How do Joe diGenova and Victoria Tensing's conflicts come anywhere near to being in the same arena as those of Robert Mueller, Rod Rosenstein, and the other partisan witch hunters on the Mueller probe? I don't get it, and I think we're never going to get a straight answer out of the lamestream media because they're so conflicted. Is there not one honest law professor who could do a straight thing? Explain to me why diGenova and Tensing, they're out, but Mueller,
he's good.
He's good.
He's great.
He was running the FBI when all this stuff happened.
And Robin, I don't know if you've had a chance to see the interview that I did. I know you've been really busy, but there was a great interview with Robin Gritz this past Sunday in D.C., and she raised the possibility that McCabe may have been operating in such a way so as to kind of trick or manipulate Comey, and that there may in fact have been some kind of deal between the Clinton campaign and Mr. McCabe for him to ascend to FBI director.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, see, that's the lesson. I think that when you read about this book, Stanley Kengore's book, Dupes, is a great book. Did you know this book?
No, but I like the name.
No, it's a very good book. He's an historian, and he wrote a book explaining how the people who want to destroy America are using the left as dupes to get them to bring the country down, and then once we descend into anarchy, the people who are behind all this mess are then going to promptly execute all these dupes, who think they're really smart.
I'm glad you brought that up, Charles, because anarchy has been coming up again and again. That's why I find doing Crowdsource the Truth so interesting, because I know that you're not like hanging out on the phone or texting with Quinn Michaels, and I know that Martha, who's What Big Eyes You Have, doesn't necessarily know what you're going to present here or what Mr. Hudson is telling me and whatever. But when all of this information converges and it's talking about the same topics like anarchy, we know that Susan Holmes appears to be a dangerous anarchist who wants people to kill all police. I personally would like to root out the bad police and keep the concept of police. Yes,
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I agree. So this article here, we could pull up the National Review one if you don't mind. Now, Andy McCarthy, I don't always agree with him on everything, but he's a veteran prosecutor. And this is a lengthy article. We're not going to try to read it out loud or anything, and it's something you should reread. It was issued June 13th, 2017.
Oh, wow.
Right? And it's basically saying that he had no need to recuse himself. And there have been other articles saying that Sessions misread the law. You know, that's not all that reassuring that the Attorney General would misread the law. And, you know, I guess the way I think about this is, you know, Donald Trump is fond of saying, you know, I only pick winners, I only work with winners, and, you know. And Sessions is what?
Does he look stoned in that photo?
He looks like Yosemite Sam. I'll say. I mean, just.
Why is he not fired? It's Wednesday already.
I know. I don't get it. And, you know, particularly when it comes to the attorney, and we've had some horrible attorney generals.
Loretta Lynch.
Eric Holder. Yeah, Eric Holder says, you know, it's an honor to be held in contempt by Congress. You know what? Because I've earned that honor, I think I'll run for president.
Oh my God.
I mean, you know, give me a break. So we have this ridiculous hit piece in Newsweek, which Newsweek is a shadow of its former self.
Well, they're changing it to News WEAK.
Newsweek. It used to be Nude Speak, is what they used to joke about it, because there are lots of sort of racy pictures in it in the 70s, whatever. But this is, you know, there was Time in Newsweek. You know, you would read Time in Newsweek in the 60s and 70s, and Time, I think, was always better than Newsweek, but neither is any good anymore. And here's this idiot trying to suggest that this is all a feud, that, you know, Trump, you know, is just mad because Mueller welched on his dues at a Trump golf club. It's just, please, you know, are you trying? I mean, I even like the old Weekly World News just for comic relief, but every time they'd have the picture of the alien, you know. And,
Hillary's alien baby.
You know, that's kind of funny. Yeah. But, you know, the folks at the National Enquirer actually are doing real investigative journalism, and they've got some scalps to prove it, John Edwards and others.
I was going to say, didn't they break that John Edwards story?
Yeah, but this is garbage.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I bet you this is in, you know, every waiting room at CNN and MSNBC has got Vanity Fair and Newsweek and, you know, who knows what else.
You know, the other thing that the Enquirer did was they broke that story about the revelation that it was Rafael Cruz standing outside the International Trade Mart with Lee Harvey Oswald, which Trump referred to in the debates, and people said, well, he's crazy, that's the Enquirer, it's obviously wrong. So that's interesting that people think the Enquirer is definitely wrong, irrespective of any kind of scientific analysis of the photo, which a guy named Ralph Sinkay did. Very good photogrammetric study of Rafael Cruz that, in my view, was incredibly compelling evidence to show that it was him. Right. Here, you just run something in Newsweek and suddenly it's true. It's ridiculous.
Well, on the good news front, though, we talked about it in the last week. We mentioned Roseanne, and there's a follow. I hadn't watched the show when we talked about it, but there's a follow. What?
I just did the wrong thing. Sorry. I shouldn't have had that reaction, but I accidentally hit the wrong button. I'm going to fix it. Don't worry about it, Charles.
All right. We okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
Please, Roseanne.
So, yeah, Roseanne, the story was last week that she had gotten 18 million households or something for her debut reboot of the show. And that was a monster. I'm not good with television numbers, but that's apparently a monster.
Well, it was proving to people that broadcast television isn't dead. I mean, Roseanne's got to be very, very happy with that result, and I hope she's watching. I was surprised to see Roseanne follows me on Twitter. I mean, I could understand, but she follows me. I was very pleased.
That is good.
Yeah.
So, but the point here is that when we got all excited about 18 million, the real number turns out to be 25 million.
DVR?
With DVR. So, I mean, that's a large number. So I ended up watching the show, and honestly, you know, I have to say that I was rolling in the aisles. It is very funny because they're very clever. They don't just simply go after the left. They go after the left, they go after the right, they go poke fun at everybody. And it's high time America got back into the business of being big enough people to laugh at ourselves. I mean, humor is a good cleansing resource.
Yes.
Even vicious humor, you know, can sort of be amusing. You think about Joan Rivers, you think about Rodney Dangerfield, people like that.
Yeah.
You know, they actually were very, very funny. Maybe not all that, or Don Rickles, people like that. You know, I don't know if you remember the Don Rickles headline President Reagan's second inauguration party.
Did he?
Yeah, it's one of the funniest. It's up on YouTube. It's really, really funny. But you know, we need to get back into the business of laughing together. And you know, you look at these. You get a whole bunch of pictures. We might do maybe a montage one time of all these scruffies. Take it at random. We'll go on a scruffy hunt, and we'll just take pictures and put them all up. And I think this process of asking men to wear these caps and wear these beards and wear these crazy clothes you're emasculating them. You're making these people look absurd.
What if they get the pink hats and go and...
I won't even need to go into the pink hat territory, but Roseanne did.
Oh.
Roseanne is very, very funny.
Always has been.
Yeah. And
I remember seeing her doing stand-up where we used to say, you know, she's a housewife. That was her. Yeah. That was her shtick originally.
She's very, very funny. So if we pull up you had it up there, the FBI vault thing.
Yes.
Now, those of us who have time on our hands, unfortunately I have time on my hands.
How is that possible? You're always doing stuff.
Yeah, but you notice I'm always doing stuff I want to do.
Right.
Which is the way I try to live.
Clinton crime syndicate.
Well, so this set of documents here, people in the FBI, you know, don't tell me there isn't one person in the FBI who is honest and interested and wants to look. Cody Highland, for example, of U.S. Attorney in Little Rock, and now this guy John Huber out in Salt Lake City or wherever he is in Utah. You know, you need to get this file. You need to get whatever clearances you need to see the whole file, not this redacted version of the file. This is an investigation that occurred between 2001 and 2005 when the man in charge of deciding at the Department of Justice whether a tax matter should be prosecuted for fraud was Rod Rosenstein, exactly in this period. So
how does Trump not know that?
Yeah, by now I bet he does know it. But Devin Nunes, Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy.
You know, Jim Jordan, Ron DeSantis, Chuck Grassley, the people in the FBI who know Robin Gritz, Sean Hannity, Seb Gorka. You got to put pressure. The president's got to put pressure to go back in and let somebody who has the clearance see this whole file, and instead of putting it out this way with all these redactions, produce a timeline that shows exactly what happened, and then marry up. There's a very simple exercise. The Clinton Foundation, on its public filings, has identified to the public for 1998 through 2002, not for 2003, but for all of 2004, every single major donation, i.e. $5,000 or more, has been identified by date. Overlay that in here. The IRS has the identities of the people who gave money. In none of these years, through 2007, have the Clintons admitted that any governments gave money to this foundation. Right there, you have what you need right in this file, then what the Clintons have filed and the state filings to go back into this history and say, all right, Rosenstein, why didn't you decide to prosecute this? You know, grand jury, what did you take before the grand jury? What were their votes? I mean, what was the process of having one grand jury impaneled by February of 2001, and yet investigations spin their wheels, go on and on and on. Mueller is personally briefed in all this. You have evidence of that in these files. You know, what were you people doing? You know,
I wish you could do it, Charles. Because it's like, what the hell are you thinking?
What the hell happened?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, you have, for example, is it this? Are we this dense in the? You know, don't tell me in the forensic accounting department of the FBI, you don't have people who could look at an accounting statement and say, well, you know, accounting statement needs to say independent, audited financial audit of consolidated financial statements, and it needs to have an income statement or a statement of revenues, statement of net assets, and it needs to have a statement of cash flows. And it needs to be done in conformity with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. The audits which are missing on the Clinton Foundation files, but available in Massachusetts and elsewhere, flatly say, in 4 separate occasions, these documents are not prepared in accordance with U.S. law.
Well, and that, I presume, is why Massachusetts revoked their ability to do
That was a slightly different reason, but yeah, it could have been.
But they're the only ones looking at the documents.
Well, no, they're in New York. They have them in New York.
Oh,
they have them in California. They have them in other states. And you know, here you have the FBI. You didn't spend like a week on it. You spent 4 years on this. 4 years. Mueller was head of the FBI from September 3rd, 2001 forward. Comey was on the case from January 2002 forward until he ultimately took Rosenstein's job, current job, as Deputy Attorney General of the United States, and I think departed the Department of Justice in around August of 2005.
Right.
But you know, what were you people doing? And somebody at the FBI, the Inspector General, the Department of Justice, somebody should be able to look at this and take these several things off. And there are extensive transcripts of what happened on. Here you see something that happened on March 22nd, 2001. You know, what was going on there? What were you doing that day? What was the weather like? Where were you? You know, where were the records kept? And unpeel this mess, and then explain to us, you know, why there was no prosecution.
Well, let me suggest this, because I believe from memory that Robin said she worked with McCabe for 13 years or something like that. Maybe I should check that. But how long has McCabe been there? And if this is from 2001 and they were checking it out for 4 years, maybe he got in there just in time to...
I think there's a high likelihood of that. You know, and you know, Comey was in there, Mueller was in there, and so you know, when we think about actually doing a serious investigation of the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton approach is to get you stuck into the slime and crime,
right?
So that you're never going to pop your hand up and say, "Bill, you got a problem," because Bill could turn around and say, "Actually, you've got a bigger problem."
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so this needs. Let's see what happened here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we go back into the old slides.
Oh. Boy, someone said there was an officer-involved shooting in Queens.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here we have Rod Rosenstein. If we hit this link.
I think I've got it right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have, I'll read this. From 2001 to 2005, Mr. Rosenstein served as Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Tax Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. This is when that Clinton Foundation fraud was, in theory, investigated but not prosecuted. He supervised the division's criminal sections and coordinated the tax enforcement activities of the tax division, the U.S. Attorney's offices, and the Internal Revenue Service. This is the guy sitting on top of the decision of should we prosecute this fraud, yes or no? And the guy says, no. Nah, yet. I don't think so. Well, who is this guy? Who's his wife? You know, what's his real resume? You know, what role did he have on the travel office decision investigation? Did he really end his service, as it suggests here, in 1997 as Associate Independent Counsel, or did he interview Hillary Clinton in January of 1998? And I think the answer is he interviewed Hillary in January of 1998, this year.
Wow.
Okay, so the investigators need to go back over this, and then we need to understand, you know, in this time frame where he failed to bring the Clintons to justice, at a pivotal moment here, 2001, 2005, is precisely when the Clinton Foundation fraud went from being just a construction ripoff scheme in Little Rock and self-engagement, self-promotion, financial enrichment scheme in Little Rock into a diabolical exercise pretending to distribute, you know, HIV/AIDS drugs that weren't checked. This is precisely when all this stuff happened. And he's on top of this and he misses it, and his reward, he gets to be the U.S. Attorney in Maryland, where he can then miss the Laureate fraud, the Rambaxi fraud, the Clinton-Bush-Haiti fraud, et cetera, et cetera. You know, how do you let this person decide whether Robert Mueller is doing a good job in an investigation of the President of the United States? It's ridiculous.
You know, Charles, I don't think I realized how really pertinent today's image was until we're getting into the material here. It's really amazing. I misspoke. It's Crown Heights, Brooklyn, not Queens, where this shooting occurred.
Well, in either case, it's not good.
No,
so
not good.
People are not hurt.
I think someone's dead, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. This next one here, that you had it up there briefly and you took it down. Yeah, this is a very lengthy set of documents here. This is, and we won't put them all up now. Videos or documents. This all has to do with Anna Chapman and the Russian spies. Now, why is this important? Okay, it's incredibly important because June 27th, 2010 is right about the time that the Tea Party was bubbling up. It's right about the time that healthcare process, people were getting upset about the healthcare, the Obamacare stuff. And it's right before, scant months before, the pivotal near-term elections, okay? It's also as decisions were being finalized about Uranium One and the various related long-standing investigations. So please explain why and who is responsible for the decision to A, round all these spies up, but then B, not debrief them for, as long as you possibly could debrief them, but instead to say, all right, you know what, we'll do an unequal exchange. We will release more of you than we get back from Russia, and we'll do that right away. Let's get that done like 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now. Why do we do that?
Yeah,
and
why?
who are the people, who in the counterintelligence division, who in the FBI, Mueller was in the FBI then, who is doing all this? And, where are the files on all this? Let's find people who are responsible and objective career people who with the highest possible security clearances who can go into this and say, what was really going on here? Okay, because it sure looks to me that what was happening is the people who are now in power, almost analogous to where Donald Trump is. This is June after 2008. It's not quite as far along as, as Donald Trump's position now. But Obama's been in power long enough. He's got a pivotal midterm, that he does not want to lose.
Right.
Right. And he's got controls the House and the Senate, but he doesn't want to lose control. And there's all this damaging information out there, and were decisions made to say, you know what, on top of everything else, fast and furious, problems with this, problems with the economy, we really can't afford to have the truth come out about the degree to which, people were basically being paid off inside the Obama administration, maybe inside the Bush administration, to allow Russian oligarchs and foreign sources to do projects inside this country and outside this country that were harmful to the national security interests of the United States, particularly if the top people in the security apparatus of the United States are questionable people like Ben Rhodes and John Brennan and that idiot, what's his name, Clapper?
Yeah.
The guy who should never play poker again, that guy? This is something that, you can't just to put this all in separate buckets and say, it doesn't all hang together. You got to have one comprehensive timeline. You got to ask why it is that this happened. When was the decision made to round these people up? Why only the 10? Are we sure that we got them all? If we are not sure we got them all, why did we let them flee so quickly? What leverage did Russia have against us or against these people involved? To understand what is happening, you've got to go into this.
I'm very curious what happened to Anna Chapman's 36-year-old husband. Anytime somebody that young who's connected to a suspected spy dies,
right?
It's like, I'm sure that was natural causes.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just did an interview for, I've never met the person physically in person, but a very smart journalist for Sputnik named Ekaterina Blanova asked me a bunch of questions germane to the new Chinese oil trading stuff and all that. It'll appear shortly. But one of the things she was asking questions about is, why are our two nations in this place? And if we think about it, China, communist China posed a very severe threat to the United States of America, including during the Korean War, Vietnam War, other periods of time. Somehow we found our way clear to say, with regard to a country that is 4 times as large in population as we are, that is demonstrated. Remember, the first acts of harm against the U.S. under the George W. Bush presidency were when Chinese spy planes forced down our spy planes in international waters. This happened 4 months or so before 9/11. Very happy to say bygones are bygones with the Chinese, but those Russians, who are less than 50% the size of us in population, who have a bigger territory, who are closer to advanced markets, who have a long history, and who pose, at least in numbers, a far smaller threat the United States of America than the Chinese might. We put the Russians in the doghouse, but we embrace the Chinese. And might that have anything to do with the amount of money that washes through Washington, D.C., through the swamp?
Well, you teach the Russians how to build iPods or iPhones. They might have a better chance at that.
So, so Mueller is all hot and bothered now to try Trump by going after this Rick Gates guy who may have communicated with a former Russian spy before the election. Where is even Alan Dershowitz, who is maybe in his old age he's becoming conservative, but even Alan Dershowitz is constantly on various channels saying this Mueller thing should have never happened in the first place. It's
millions wasted.
Well, it's also damaged the system. You don't get the answer you want. Special counsel.
Looking. Yeah, right.
And so this is a scruffy look. He doesn't have his hat on. See?
Who?
Gates
guy?
Doesn't have his hat on.
Oh, the pink. Yeah.
Not the pink hat, just a wool hat. They wear them in the summer.
I've noticed that.
It's like they look ridiculous. Stuff to tell the hobos from the scruffies.
It's making it difficult for the staff at Starbucks.
Yeah, right. So
zero hedge.
Yeah, this is. I just want to see if we can go into the.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I want to make sure we got this one point here. So the situation that is so ably described and doggedly so by Jan Weinberg in the Audacity files and all his research, and he's been doing a lot. I'm getting emails from him. He's doing a lot of research. It's not this one.
Sorry.
Is when you think about the size of the U.S. military, not that, this one here, the military apparatus. We spend. I think Trump is crowing about spending now $800 billion per year on what we know is in the military. And you lay that up against the amount spent around the world. Now, maybe other countries lie and spend a lot more, but I don't think, many other countries come close to spending $800 billion a year. And then you start thinking what President Eisenhower warned about in his speech, in his last speech as president, the military-industrial complex and all that. This idea that in order to sell big munition systems, you have to have a conflict looming on the horizon. It needs to be thought through carefully, and it does stand to reason that if we really do have differences with Russia, with China, with other countries, we should find ways. The guys, men and women who work in the State Department should be trying to kind of narrow those differences and reduce the tensions, and we shouldn't be in a state that we are in now, of perpetual war.
Yeah.
And there's something wrong with that conclusion. There's something wrong with the cost of these munition systems. There's something wrong with the way in which we evaluate all this stuff, and the lack of accountability, the lack of scrutiny of the companies that make these munitions, of their financial statements. We need to bring this more back into balance. And if I'm sitting there as Russia, and I'm spending $75 billion, and I see, America say, we got to get back into the game here. We're only spending $800 billion. We better spend, $10 trillion a year. I'm going to get a little bit more nervous about the true intentions of the United States of America. So spending more money is not necessarily proof of deterrence or proof that you're going to be safer. And I just think it's out of kilter. We have people who are just pro-war, and we've been at war now under this, new approach towards intelligence gathering, internal and external to the country, since September 11th, 2001.
Yeah.
It's April 4th, 2018. This country has, until this period, never been at war continuously for as long as we now have been at war.
And Barack Obama was the first president to be at war every single day of his presidency. Hopefully Trump can break that cycle.
While quickly winning the Nobel Peace Prize. No irony there.
Exactly. Well, he got that before he became president, so...
he got it.
He hadn't been inaugurated yet.
No, he had been inaugurated.
Really?
And the issue was that, I looked in this time, he had been inaugurated. The issue is that the nominations closed like 11 days after he was there. So, they evaluated him for 11 days and said, Nobel Peace Prize, why not?
And he's like, thanks, I'll just put that on the mantle and go continue to bomb.
I mean,
Old bomber.
So, you know, I think we need to think a bit more carefully about, you know, who are our true enemies, who are our true friends. I was heartened to see that perhaps an invitation may have been offered to Vladimir Putin to come and meet with President Trump in the White House. Those sorts of things. I've never been involved in anything like that, but my guess, I hope, would be that there would be some groundwork in advance of that, and people would talk, and, you know, it would be not scripted, but it would be thought through.
They've met once, right? In Davos or something? Where
Several times, but they periodically meet at these different, you know, meetings, but they never, I don't think Vladimir Putin has been escorted through the White House by Donald Trump yet.
What about Mar-a-Lago? They go play golf.
Play golf or go bear hunting somewhere, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. So the next one is not that one. We'll go back into the slides if we can. Okay, yeah.
So it's going to be this one. Let me.
Yes, we can do that.
Sorry. Yeah. Sometimes these links are a little tricky and
gremlin-y.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why that occurs, but let's.
I could talk around it. We don't have to pull it.
Here it comes.
Okay.
Website would like to do something. Okay.
All right. So this is a good story, but it's small beer. It's the small beer department. So this is, you know, the picture of Bill Clinton. Some pictures are flattering. That's not so flattering. There's a relatively minor charity or organization that gave money to the Clinton Foundation, where the guy, this is Jess Ravitch, managing director of TCW Group, supposedly coerced a female employee into sex over the span of 10 months. Okay, so yeah, this is the thrust of the story. It's small money. He gave tiny money to the Clinton campaign and the foundation. You go up here and look at this picture. Who are we looking at here?
The
Bill
guy
Clinton,
who coerces women over 10 minutes.
Raped our friend, you know, yeah. Juanita Broderick, and attacked numerous women, and standing by Hillary Clinton, you know, talking that way. You know, the person who not only enabled Bill Clinton through all this, put up with him, didn't divorce him, and then decided in 1998 that, you know, rather than turfing Bill out, which she could have done. I mean, if she stood up and said, if she wanted to be a force for women, and come out and said, that's it, I've had it, okay?
Yeah.
Bill Clinton would have been forced out of office, and as he should have been.
And she would have been a hero.
She might have been the candidate you know, the winning candidate in 2000. Had she stood up and done that, you know, you go back and look and say, you know, she persisted, he resisted, all these ridiculous rhyming slogans. She wussed.
Yeah.
She knows Bill Clinton certainly better than either one of us. She knows, you see that face? That's the lion man's face, right? And she could have turfed him out. Al Gore would have probably turned around and you know, he would have been president. She would have been put in as vice president, maybe. She would have been, you know, the president for 8 years. We would have been done with this a long time ago.
She could have invented the internet with Al Gore. I think you're right, though. That was pretty terrible behavior by her. She's exhibited really poor decision-making in terms of women's rights things in the past, and just not a champion for women at all. I think it's a good indicator that there's something more that they're trying to protect, like a criminal enterprise.
Well, it's funny you should mention that. So when we go back into the slides here, what I was referring to here is I don't have the story handy, we'll put it up another time. I've begun to focus, what's going on here?
I'm trying to get to the...
Yeah, another charity controlled by... Yeah. So that's the Clinton Family Foundation, and I did a piece about it, and I've been going into it in great depth. Mm-hmm. The Clinton Family Foundation, in fact, I know I said in the "this just in" section is when you should say it, but
well, this just in, Charles,
yeah. Here's the not from there,
not from there. Where did that go?
Not that. There you go. All right, this just came out. You see here, April 4th, 2018 at 6:11 p.m.
That's today.
just now, while we were on air. Okay, and Mark Tapscott was editing this for me, and basically, it's a long piece, but I'll give you the gist of it, and that is the Clinton Family Foundation was something that was set up in December of 2001 as a vehicle to route their personal contributions to charities. So the first step is they send it to the Clinton Family Foundation, then the charity sends it to the recipient organization. Okay, that's, you know, you could do that properly. In their case, they didn't. You know, it's standard. Yeah. Of course, you don't do it right. You know, they used some small firm, got all the stuff wrong. The firm that was brought in to fix it in 2006-07 was where Loretta Lynch, where Loretta Lynch was working, Hogan Lovell. So basically, they didn't give. It's curious in the early period where the Clintons were out there hawking. Bill was hawking, you know, telling everybody, give to my, you know, massage parlor and restaurant or whatever, the catering service out there in Little Rock. It's a great idea for everybody else. That's not the way the Clintons rolled. They gave their stuff to, you know, many other charities other than the main one in that time frame. But what they don't seem to understand, and it's really surprising to me because I'm not a lawyer and both of them are lawyers. Yeah. And in the case of Hillary, she's on that list of, you know, regularly was on the list of the best, smartest lawyers in the world.
Who makes that list?
The same people who are curating this copy at Newsweek. Yeah. But you know, the problem with this is that under New Hampshire laws, which are all linked in here and I can't explain, you cannot run a charity in New Hampshire, and they were up soliciting in New Hampshire. I have all the files for the main Clinton Foundation up in New Hampshire. You may not constitute yourself as a charity in New Hampshire if you have fewer than 5 directors, none of which can be related by blood or marriage.
That's specifically to avoid exactly what they're trying to do.
Right, exactly what they did. And so, you know, this is, you know, bright line stuff. It doesn't take, you know, a genius to go and say, well, let's look and see what they did. Yeah. Now let's look, did they operate in New Hampshire? Yes, they did. And what does New Hampshire law tell you? It tells you there's a violation. But wait, as they say,
there's more.
There's more. I'll offer free shipping. The issue here is that if you enter into, it's a defined term, a transaction of a pecuniary interest, meaning a transaction where you have a monetary interest with a transaction with a charity where you stand to gain a monetary interest. If that amount is $5,000 or more in a year, you must disclose the transaction before it happens in a newspaper that circulates throughout the state of New Hampshire, giving the public a chance to say, wait a minute,
right?
You know, we're talking about giving management of the endowment that we illegally raised to an organization in which Chelsea's brother-in-law does have an interest. Chelsea's husband's partner does have a financial interest. You can't do that. Yeah, they did that. We're talking about, you know, doing all sorts of transactions in which the Clintons get pecuniary interest, but where they don't disclose any of them. And we will be revealing all these transactions, and this is an appeal to the Republican Attorney General of New Hampshire and the Republican Governor of New Hampshire to go back into the long record here, which we have, and I've sent it to these people as we speak. We have a long history where the Attorney General or the Governor of New Hampshire was a Democrat. We have a shorter period where, in some cases, it was Republican. You know, the people of New Hampshire need to believe that the laws of New Hampshire are being applied fairly, you know, whether you're Republican or Democrat. And I can tell you that they were not fairly applied. And the problem with this one, that the Clintons don't want to get, that idiot David Brock doesn't want to get, is that when you send, you know, like that Google Earth thing, when we travel up to New Hampshire, when you know, put this form together and you get some friendly person to notarize it, and you get a stamp and you put a stamp on it, and you send it into the mail chute or however you do it, and it goes across state lines using the mail, you have the predicates there for a crime.
Right.
Each time you did that, every single report, when you swear, as Andrew Kessel, dopey Andrew Kessel swears before a notary, when you deceive the regulators, when you obstruct justice in New Hampshire, on this magnitude for this long period of time, where you tell New Hampshire one thing and you tell Michigan a different thing, and you do that here and you do that there, it becomes very difficult to argue that this is just,
a mistake.
Say, well, somebody's entrapping me. It's a vast right-wing conspiracy.
Right.
I mean, I didn't do anything wrong here. You have, the president of the foundation saying, to this state, I'm going to call the foundation the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. But to this dopey state, I'm going to call it the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. This place, I'll tell them about that address. Here's a different address.
Right.
Then you start getting these flurry of mail where you can take the envelope into a bank and you could say, I want to open up a bank account in this name, with this address, and this and that. And now you've got an ability to collect a lot of donations and cash checks, but not route that to the charity. Instead, to take the money and use it for campaigns, for enrichment, for high living, whatever. This is what we're talking about. All the ingredients for fraud. And when you bring it down a level to states, it is indisputable. And if there are 30,000 people in the FBI, why don't we free up, tell people you can forget about the summer vacation.
Yeah.
Free up 1,000 of them. And, let's get all of the forms that were filed here. Because what these people did, they're in the classic business, of telling one regulator one thing and another regulator another thing. You put all that together into a comprehensive timeline, and eventually even dopey Andrew Kessel is going to crack. Certainly some of these outside directors are going to crack. Because the bad news for you outside directors, if there's no organization here, right, you never filed a tax return of the Clinton Foundation, October 23, 97 to December 31, 97. No organization. You've got the president of the foundation saying in Michigan, the reason I didn't give you any information about 1997, saying under oath, is that the Clinton Foundation didn't exist in 1997. Yet, you're telling the IRS that you started work on October 23, 1997, and the IRS says, that's right, so give us a report back to October 23, 1997, but you don't do that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway.
Now, Charles, one thing I didn't realize is that this is an image that somebody used. They created a meme where they took out the bottom foot on that second L and they erased the Y and it just said liar. And that was a creative meme for sure that somebody put together.
That could be very good.
Pretty good, pretty good. So back to the slides, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think we're on the next page. This is the final page, and I promise we're going to come close here.
Yeah.
So to our two-hour and change time frame. So back earlier this year, if not late last year, I warned with our good friend Yatrice Lead, who has a great progressive radio show, and she's a wonderful human being. I warned
Market crash.
That was a tool, a potential tool, Lucky Strike Extra, lurking out there, because the people at the top of the food chain who may want to behave crookedly, will have advance notice of a crash. I believe that on the way up, I think conditions, that fateful time, March 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 2009, in that time frame, we were headed right down into the end of it. And yet, it turned around. And certain hedge fund guys, they made the call before the turnaround, almost like to the day. How
did they do that?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of, as George Costanza likes to say on Seinfeld, there's a lot of leakage or shrinkage or whatever out of the swamp. And so, if you're George Soros and you know the end is coming, and if you're prepared the way he operates or may operate to place bets that there's going to be a crash, you can have a fantastic world. You can have the West that you hate fall apart. You can profit at the expense of as the demise occurs. And this is one of these warning signs. Experts will tell you, when you see this relationship flash up as it is now flashing up, short version of the explanation is this means that banks, particularly European banks, are reluctant to lend to each other overnight. It means they're very nervous about what's going on. And when you see this is before the crash in 2008, you saw this, 2007, you saw this. You see this kind of stuff going on. And this is not a time to swing for the fences, because this is telling me and others, and when you see the volatility in the stock market, we won't talk about cryptos.
I was about to check.
I do not. But this is a moment where there are a lot of indices telling you, watch out. And if you think through how this would be spun, right? The mainstream media, you can't make them happy about Trump.
Crypto's not doing good.
Yeah. So if there's a crash, if this went, it would have to go, in my mind, 25% lower than where the market was on the day Trump was elected, in order to credibly say, that this is a disaster. To say that the market went down from this level, 23,000 or wherever it is, let's say it goes to 20, which is a steep drop of 3,000 points, it's still 2,000 above
where he started.
So, I mean, it's not great, and people will not be happy. It would have to be a debacle, to be something where, it'd have to be down through 18,000 or so, down into 16, 15, 14, whatever. And that could happen, could easily happen. So if we go to the next. This is, there's been a lot of chatter about the reasons why we threw out 60 Russian spies and why there was a coordinated counter reaction, let's say, to the news about the possible, the actual assaults against these 2 Russians in the UK. And the second I saw that, it reminded me of the Syrian stuff.
Right, this Novichok gas attack.
Right. We have this long history of tortured relations with our closest and best ally, the UK, where the UK has, in the main, been to the left of the US, particularly since 1945. So, there's a camp in the UK that is the Blair people and others like him who love the Clintons.
Yeah.
And our good friend Andrew Napolitano, Judge Napolitano, got in trouble for alleging, he says 3 sources, but for alleging that elements in the, what is it? The
MI6?
No,
GCHQ.
GCHQ and elements in our security services had some kind of informal arrangement where
well,
we
the Five Eyes, this is what reached out and touched Harmon Wilfred.
Right, but there's supposedly a series of protocols where the Brits would spy on you and me, and we would spy on the Brits, and the information would get exchanged over boozy wine bar dinners, whatever. And, when I saw this episode in Salisbury, it did, and I've been interviewed actually a number of different places on it, and it just, I don't think of Vladimir Putin as being an idiot, as being,
No, very shrewd.
Like here's a man who was a senior person in the KGB, and he's come up, he's very powerful. I don't think he's an idiot. And I don't see how it suited his interest, following all the brouhaha over the question of what gas was used in Syria, where did that come from, to pull a stunt like this in Salisbury.
Who is the guy, though, that somebody was trying to kill?
Skripal?
But what's his role? Like, why would Putin want to kill him?
I don't know enough about all the details, but my point is, I think this is an area we need to be very careful, as you have been doing with, Paddock and these other things, of these instant crises where suddenly they're experts who know exactly what happened.
Right.
Even though the FBI was caught flat-footed, or the police department there, suddenly a pundit knows exactly that the Russians are behind this.
Right.
And I'm not, apologist for the Russians, but I do think, when we're starting to accuse countries of behavior, countries that have gigantic arsenals of nuclear weapons, of untoward acts, I think we also need to put the shoe on the other foot and say, what would happen, what would we do to Russia if they falsely accused us of diabolical acts anywhere in the world? What would we do?
Probably bomb them.
Yeah.
Well, sanction them. They'd sanction them.
No, I think we'd be pretty, this level thing, you're telling us, that we're saying, if somebody came to Donald Trump and said, President Trump, we believe you ordered, your team to go in and kill an enemy in the UK. You personally ordered them to, and you better have some evidence.
Yeah.
And I think that standard should be applied fairly in this case. We should really understand what was going on, and there's just too many, sneaky, leaky aspects to this Steele dossier, this Papadopoulos creep, the relations we've already uncovered with Alexander Downer.
Yeah.
There's just too many strange, unanswered questions here for us to immediately jump down the rabbit hole and say, the UK are right.
Now, Charles, I'm sure you can't answer this question, but it's a good one, and it's from Algo Rhythm, who's frequently in the comments. Algo wants to know if any district attorneys or attorneys general have contacted us about this work. Certainly not me, and I imagine if any have contacted you,
I have not been contacted.
Not been contacted. All right. There you go, I'll go.
So if we go back into the slides. Yeah, here we have Roger Stone. He's been shooting his mouth off.
As he is apt to do.
It's not a tough thing. He's a decent person. I mean, I've met him a few times.
Roger Stone. I got no beef
with
Roger Stone. He writes very good books about the JFK assassination.
Well, he's also very amusing. He's a great public speaker. He's been around a while. But I think I don't know where these emails are, but I know that somebody has them.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've talked to enough people who are expert in this area. The E, as somebody once said to one of my children, the E in email stands for evidence, not electronic. And there is evidence. The whole idea behind the internet was to create, or many ideas, but one of them was to create a resource where you would capture the evidence and be able to study it over time. So just don't even try to tell me that nobody has these. Don't even try to pretend.
NSA should have them.
They definitely have them. According to Napolitano, the NSA has every keystroke anybody has uttered into any keystroke in any computer since around 2003 or 4.
That's crazy,
right? So just don't tell me nobody has this. Don't tell me that we sort of have been to Chappaqua. I mean, the securities or the security defenses are not exactly impregnable there.
No.
And so just don't even try to tell me. They're going to come out, and more importantly, what's going to start to come out here is evidence in an unexpected place of an email that wasn't among those turned over by Hillary Clinton when she turned over all of her work-related emails.
Right. To John Podesta.
Exactly. And don't tell me that the lowest learner is Mother Teresa. Just don't even try to tell me that.
Now, Charles, as I look at this article about Roger Stone, it's talking about he had the information the same day he dined with Julian Assange.
So Roger, people say, can be prone to exaggeration.
But he said, I've heard him say on InfoWars that he's never met Julian Assange.
I know, but there was a moment in time where he was kind of suggesting that he had, maybe. And so they're trying to impugn with this story, I think they're trying to impugn him.
They should just have him interview Robert David Steele about sex slaves on Mars.
Yeah, that would sell more copies of Newsweek.
Well, it would impugn his reputation.
So if we go, here, this old dog, and we're all getting older, not you, of course, Jason, but many of us are getting older. And
here he goes.
I saw this story, and it just makes me sick. That this creep.
Yeah, they're now doing another recovery effort, right?
And we have that. Who's the Attorney General of Florida? It's Pam Bondi, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she's a Republican. She's always on Fox News. How are you letting, Attorney General Bondi, how are you letting this serial predator get anywhere near disaster relief in advance in the Caribbean? Given his record, his despicable record in Haiti, given his record with Katrina, despicable, given his record with the Clinton-Bush Haiti Fund, as co-chairman of the Interim Haiti Recovery Committee, whatever it was called, how can you let this person do this? And by what right is he launching an initiative in your state in Florida? Where's the evidence that the Clinton Foundation has any legal authority to do any of this work? Okay, where's the accounting? We've got a story coming out about the accounting for Clinton-Bush Haiti Fund. And let me tell you, it implicates Rod Rosenstein.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to steal the thunder of the story, but the accounting for the Clinton-Bush Haiti Fund is a fraud. It's an outright fraud.
It's really not surprising, to say the least.
Yeah. So if we hit the slides. So one person, you had him there to watch extremely closely, is this new guy, John W. Huber.
What's this guy all about?
He's the person he's an interesting cat. He is the U.S. Attorney for Utah, the District of Utah. He was originally appointed by President Obama. He was then asked to resign. When people were asked to resign, President Trump and others reviewed this guy's record and said, you know what? We like this guy. Right? So here's somebody appointed by Obama, then reviewed by Trump, They keep him, and they have given this guy, for some time now, responsibility to get into the matters raised by the Inspector General's report, to consider whether there should be prosecutions. I want to see that Inspector General's report. I want to understand
Seems to be taking forever.
Well, I think with good reason. If you have 1.2 million documents or pages or whatever, you can't just...
You don't want to rush that.
I mean, it's not like they operate the Steele dossier. It's not like you rush stuff out that isn't vetted and impugn people's integrity and set up special counsel investigations.
Right.
And you've got 1.2 million pages of documents here. Review them. What's going on here? And if there need to be prosecutions, we need to, win indictments, get indictments, and then win prosecutions and secure convictions. That's what we should be trying to do here. This is a guy who can do that.
Haven't we heard a million times that there's like 2,000 sealed indictments or some crazy number of thousands of sealed? When are they going to unseal them and carry on with the trial?
Let the indicting begin.
Let the indicting begin. The Indict Olympics.
Yeah.
Indictapalooza.
So if we go back into the slides, okay. This, I'm not going to, I could do, we will probably do a whole show just on this next link. There are accounting regulations. If you hit that link, if you can. It was up there.
Oh yeah, that's just this.
Yeah. All right. So this is something that became effective. I believe it says, if we go down a little bit, I think it is effective December 15th, 2009. Yeah, December 15th, 2009. This is a very key date, okay? This is just when, we remember back to Fabien Chalandon's excellent presentations, this is just when Unitaid, the investigation in Unitaid is starting. This is just when Hillary Clinton is in South Africa directing US government money to fight HIV/AIDS through the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative. It is 16 days before the crook who was running the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative, Anil Soni, swears out on a new application to the IRS 16 days after this, there are no predecessor activities, okay? And new accounting regulations come down that say, if you want to take over a charity, you got to follow all these rules. So the Clintons, what do? They say,
they don't want to do that.
We're not doing that.
Hell no.
So they create these, it's just like Enron. It's just like what, Mueller went, people, they
well, there's a reason it's just like Enron.
Right.
It's the same people running the show.
I know, it's the Enron template. So what they do is you got a problem, you sweep the problem into a shell company. So you got this HIV/AIDS initiative that never was lawfully created, and people are asking pesky questions. So what do? You get a team of idiots to go and you game the Justice Department, you game the FBI, you game the IRS, you got all those bases covered. The media is asleep at the switch. Nobody's going to look at this. And you say, oh, I had a problem with that old company. Guess what? It just doesn't exist. I put it into this company over here. Well, these regulations prevent that. You're not allowed to do that, but they did it. And the problem with all this is, in this very fertile moment in December 2009, actions taken then infect all subsequent filings, especially including the 2010 filing, which was initially filed in 2011, but subsequently refiled in 2015, meaning that the statute of limitations for all this
resets.
We're all finite. So this one set, where you get, I hope Kevin O'Rourke and some other people, accountants, to work with us on this and take you through exactly how preposterous it is to have done what they did when Mueller was head of the FBI, right, at this time. Must have known when the Uranium One transaction was going on, when this informant was, alleging that the Clinton Foundation was a slush fund. Right. This is exactly when all this reorganization, illicit reorganization happened. So we're going to take people through that. Then if you go, okay, this, I said that heat's rising in many states. New Hampshire is one of them. That's a link to the charitable trust site. It's worth hitting that link or going into the previous. Okay, you see there's a lot of stuff here, all the forms, the reports, how it works, etc., questions. And basically, New Hampshire has been tough on the regulation of charitable trusts since 1943. A long history of cases and statutes. They know how to do this. And the Clinton Foundation's various entities are a case study in how to break the law in New Hampshire. It's like, you know, you want to figure out how to do something the wrong way, just pull up the Clinton Foundation forms.
Or intern for them.
Or intern, yeah, exactly. So we're going to be doing this state by state, you know, state by state. And New Hampshire is one. There are many other good ones.
Well, the good news is electronic filing has arrived, so perhaps forgery and fraud are even easier now. You can do it from the convenience of your own computer on the internet. So that's good.
And then we go back into the slide, and we're almost done. Stuart Dean has done a lot of excellent work.
Indeed.
And initially, you know, I was focused on did they break the charity laws? And it's the other one between that. Yeah.
Oh, right.
And Stuart, being a lawyer and experienced, highly experienced, actually started in a better place of asking, you know, before we get to this issue of whether it's charity fraud, is it just straight up fraud?
Yeah.
I mean, have they been pretending to be a charity when they had no real reason to even say that they were a corporation?
Huh.
And I think that's the correct way to look at this, that if you, to start with, you first say, look, A, you got problems because you're not even a valid corporation. You know, you can't just create a corporation. You have to sign the paperwork in this country and say, I got a corporation over here. Not hold board meetings, not file filings, not have bylaws, have no records, fake names, commit bank fraud, postal fraud, wire fraud. You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
Right? Before you get to the place of saying, you know, well, now I'm a charity. So we're going to be taking people through that exercise with reference to state-by-state violations in a comprehensive time frame. I encourage the FBI to do this work ahead of me, but you know, I don't see any public progress yet. And I see April 15th coming up for individuals. I think individuals who contributed to these Clinton frauds have serious problems if we want to make an issue of them. And I certainly see problems by May 15th, 2018, when the Clinton Foundation and others need to make these filings. I hasten to add that with regard to a charity, under many states, if you make a filing long ago and something changes that's adverse to the charity, you've got to disclose it within 30 days in many states, these changes. And they, of course, never did that right. So it's not just those two deadlines.
And people should follow Stuart on Medium. He's always doing a lot of good writing.
Yeah. Now, we're going to close here with a sort of amusing one.
Oh, yes.
This is really fun.
It is.
So if we go, this is a name we have not brought up yet. Do you want me to give you the number again?
Oh, is it not there because the thing keeps accidentally?
It's 35.
Is it? Wasn't it 20?
35.
Okay.
It should pop right up when you do it. 1019477. Yep. Okay. Then you hit search.
MC search. I forget what.
It's right here. You're on it actually.
Did it not click?
And you know, this is one that sort of, I know we were sort of joking about the red heifer.
Yeah.
Remember?
No.
This is called Heifer Project International.
What is that?
Well, if you hit on it, it's based in Little Rock.
This is like when Bill Clinton wants to...
Well, we're going to get to it. So this is based in Little Rock. So go down the page a little bit. You see, it was first filed, the registration statement in New York in 1980. But if you go all the way at the bottom, okay, and you hit that accountant report, 2007, okay, you're going to encounter a familiar name.
Uh-huh.
Okay? I love the names of these people. Lisa Gaddy of the Legal Services.
I can't say that I remember who that is.
All right, well, look at their address. One World Avenue in Little Rock, which technically is actually adjacent to the Clinton Foundation Library. And we don't yet have the paperwork on it, but the Clinton in his book, Giving, or I call it Taking, talks about how he hived off a bunch of the land, or arranged for a sublease of some of the land to do the international headquarters of this Heifer Foundation, which is, when you think about it, it's an interesting idea that instead of sending money around the world, what they would do,
cows?
Different things like cows and chickens and stuff like that, but not from the United States. They would arrange to like get local stuff.
Yes,
so
you did mention this.
Yeah, so
I do remember that.
Now we go to the next. Keep going down a little bit. Who provided this audit? Does this typeface look familiar? June 30th, 2006. Of all the auditing firms in the world, of all the bars, BKD, all right? Now this is June 30th, 2006, almost, this is, I believe from memory, 21 days after they did their audit of the Clinton Foundation.
They were busy.
All right, well, but this one they do sort of properly, almost properly. The other one they don't do properly. Here, as we scroll down, we'll get here, see nature of the operations, okay? It says, principles of consolidation. The consolidated financial statements include the accounts of the organization and its country programs that require consolidation under Statement of Position 94-3, reporting of related entities by not-for-profit organizations. So here is an instance 21 days after the Clinton Foundation illegally procured a false and materially misleading audit from the same accounting firm, this same accounting firm.
That's in Arkansas,
that
BKD?
that is auditing an entity right next door to the Clinton Foundation. So you would sort of hope that maybe a few of the people on the Clinton team are also on the Heifer Project International team, or at the very least that the manager of the Little Rock office says, I got an idea. Why don't I compare notes? Let's make sure that whatever policies apply to Heifer are followed at Clinton. So this is one they did not follow at Clinton, but they tried to follow with Heifer. Go down a little bit further, please.
Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page there.
Okay, and keep going. Here they talk about government grants. They know what they are. Accounting for affiliates. I mentioned that. Now, property and equipment. Okay, look here. $29 million to build the headquarters of this thing. $29 million in Little Rock.
The Bill Clinton mini.
No, this is the Heifer one.
Oh, right.
Built, and look at this next thing, line of credit. Okay, as of June 30th. No, next one. Sorry, long-term debt. The construction loan. They take out a $19.5 million construction loan. When did they do that? October 8th, 2003.
Oh, yeah.
Just exactly as the Clinton Foundation was gearing up. And remember, the Clinton Foundation started borrowing in 2004, in February 2004. They take out a loan. They're able to borrow $26.5 million for Bank of America, secured by nothing.
That's crazy. Why are they able to do that?
And these guys have to, and they're paying like 5%, 4 or 5% interest, the Clinton Foundation. These guys, on a lockdown loan that's secured by property, are paying the lesser of 18% or the prime rate plus 0.25%.
That's crazy. Isn't that super high? Like, why not? That's like
this is high.
This is like credit card interest.
Well, it would be the prime rate that they're paying, which who knows what that was back then, because it's the lesser of. But look at this: 90 days after the receipt of a certificate of occupancy, right? The loan is the principal begin. Well, I checked with the city of Little Rock. The certificate of occupancy for the Clinton Foundation main thing that opened on November 18th, 2004 was issued on October 17th, 2005. So we need to contrast,
so what does
these
that mean? Is
strict
this made
terms.
Up?
No, it means these were the strict terms. It means that Bank of America and Metropolitan Bank and Titanium Acquisition Corp made concessionary loans to the Clinton Foundation, not doing their due diligence, which are tantamount to gifts, illegal gifts. Right, off market, you're not allowed to do that, but they did it. Now, then if we just quickly go back into the index here, and I'll be writing this up, and we'll do a lot of time. Go back a page.
Oh, the slide.
Yeah. No, to the what you hit, the search results.
Got it.
It's extreme right. Yeah, there you go. So let's take, for example, the annual filing for the charitable organization for that same period, okay?
This one?
June 30th, yep, 2006. And we'll hit that and we'll bring that up. And what we're going to look here at is we're going to say, look, how big, oh, they didn't submit one in New York. That's interesting. Then let's go and look at the one for 2007. You have to submit one in 2005, but they didn't. Let's look at the one for 2006. The next one up, rather, 7. Oh yeah, there's a second one. What do you know? Here's the second one. The first one, there's 2 shown for 2006. Let's look at that one. Yeah. Ah. What does this say? One World Avenue, James Neal, and Joe Luck. You gotta love these names.
Yeah.
Joe Luck. This is just a contract for marketing. And we don't seem to have a 990.
No.
All right, so then we'll go back into the search results. Let's look at 2007. See if we have a 990 for that.
So there's 2 for every year, it looks like.
Could be restating things. Ah, none in 2007 for heifer. Then, you know, it's birds of a feather.
What's all this stuff?
Oh, let's keep that. All right. Well, actually, if you go back just for a second here, this is the audit. Look at the size of this. This is, keep going, let's see the total. All right, so for June 30th, 2007 and 2006, this is an entity that is comparable in size to the Clinton Foundation, right? 114 million, 126 million total revenues, right?
Good work.
This is a heavily international operation. Let's look and see how much they spend on travel. And if you keep going through this into the 990, past, you know, way past this, yeah, once we get through this, should be the 990. Where are you, 990? Come on.
Oh, here, maybe I could search it.
It's going to be, try like page 20 or so. Should be there. Yeah, here we go. What does it say?
It says attached, please find the audit that corresponds. Let me bring it up here so people can see it.
This is Lisa Gaddy again.
Appreciate your pay. Corresponds with the year. Appreciate your patience. Allow us to
so
send
they're
this
having-
document at a later date.
So they're having problems with their consolidation approach in the foreign branches. So this shows that BKD is well experienced with the issue of how do you account for foreign operations of a Little Rock-based charity next door to the Clinton Foundation, right? So they can't say, oh, we didn't, this is beyond our expertise. We're doing it for the heifer people, but we're not going to do it for the Clinton Foundation. This is how, you know, so then let's go and see if we get for 2008, do we get a 990?
This one.
This may have a 990. Joe Luck is still very much in the CEO. Joe out. Here we go. Okay. This we have 128 million in total contributions, gifts, and grants. See that, 128 million?
Yep.
Now we go to the next page. Let's see what, for a heavily international operation, how much do they spend on travel?
Where does it say?
Keep going. Right. It's there. 2.9 million.
Well, that's a lot, isn't it?
Do you remember how much the Clintons spent for travel in 2008? A hell of a lot more than that. You see, so we're going to be comparing and contrasting these expenses, these approaches for the next door neighbor entity, heavily international, Heifer International, audited by the same accounting firm. You know, what do the ratios look like? What do the distinctions look like? You know, it's an obvious fraud here. There's no reason to keep BKD involved with the Clinton Foundation as it was kept right the way through 2009, 10, 11. I think it was only in 12. 12 was the last year, I think, when BKD reported for the Clinton Foundation. Then 13, Price Waterhouse took over. What was BKD? They slaughtered the Clinton Foundation reports for so many years. Why did the trustees of the Clinton Foundation keep BKD around? That's a question that needs to be answered, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of it.
I have a feeling the answer might be they were willing to enter these shystery documents.
Right, that's right. What documents do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that everything for today, Charles?
You know what? I think so.
Very well done. 2 hours 24.
It's my pleasure.
Well, with that, I guess we will bid everyone adieu and see them on Sunday for another Sunday with Charles. I do just want to remind people that it is very important, particularly while the channel comes under attack like this, for the people that enjoy what we're doing and like watching Crowdsource the Truth, it's very important that they consider becoming regular sponsors. Patreon is a good way to do it at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or paypal.me crowdsourcethetruth. We've had a really great outpouring of support from the people that watch. We've increased, we've gone over 300 before this malicious striking on the channel occurred, there was 200 and something, I think, or maybe there was 300, but it's been a lot of people. No, I think it was 320, and we've gotten about 40 new patrons in the past week or so. So I want to say thank you to everyone that's been sponsoring the channel, and certainly even if it's just $1 per month, I don't want anyone to be financially putting themselves out, but if we can distribute the sponsorship across the 57,000 subscribers that we had on the Crowdsource the Truth main channel, that's a great way to finance the operation and keep Crowdsource the Truth from being beholden to any particular sponsor for any particular amount. I definitely want to remind people that hopefully they will be sharing the link to Crowdsource the Truth 2, the new channel on YouTube. Help us get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of today. I'd love to be able to do 5,000 subscribers in the first week to try to restore some of the people from the previous channel who might still be confused as to where they can find all the great programs like Charles Ortel is Closing In and Sunday with Charles, and of course Harmon Wilfred, America's First Refugee. You know, Charles, Quinn Michaels and I are going to be starting a regular Saturday show.
Oh, great.
Quinn is constantly doing a ton of amazing work, and that's really starting to cross over into some of the other areas that we get into. The other thing I want to remind people about that I haven't spoken about too much lately is the Redbubble merchandise store. If you just go to redbubble.com and type in Crowdsource the Truth, you can get lots of great material with some of the deep state dunces who have actually made themselves into public figures by basically insulting and attacking me on the internet, and I'm certainly free to parody them with political cartoons. Of course, Andrew McCabe could be facing jail time. You're going to want to have your t-shirt for that. We've got Hudson Report shirts. And of course, any of this artwork, you can select a mug or a t-shirt or a cell phone case or a variety of different things. There's some wonderful new artwork that's been added. Andrew McCabe driving in his Porsche as he crushes our dear friend Robin Gritz, as he is apt to do. She's right there, sort of a roadkill version of Robin Gritz. And people can purchase those items on the redbubble.com Crowdsource the Truth merchandise store. I want to thank you for joining me today, Charles. I will see you on Sunday, and I'm going to see everybody tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for supporting Crowdsource the Truth and the new Crowdsource the Truth 2. See you tomorrow.